right, we're back from a Labor Day weekend, and we only had a few days of school. We already had a break. All right, let's see. We did meet in closed session this evening, and I will have Trustee Aguila report out our closed session items.
Good evening. For the first item that we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization with Novato Federation of Teachers, NFT. The second item we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957, Public Employee Discipline, Dismissal, Release, and that was information only. And for the first item, we gave direction. And that's it.
All right, thank you. All right, approval of our agenda this evening. It stands as is. There are no changes. Move.
Tonight's meeting.
Okay, a first by Trustee Millerick, a second by Trustee Mack to approve our agenda. All those in favor? 7-0.
Okay.
All right, and if anybody would like to make a comment on anything that's not on the agenda or on the agenda, please fill out a blue card. I do have several already. You will have 3 minutes to speak before the board. You come right up to the podium. What I usually do is call off I call off 3 names at a time. And those 3 speakers will come up, and then I'll call off another 3. Please hold to the 3 minutes. We have quite a few cards. We could be here for easily an hour with public comment, which is fine. That's what we're here. This is what that part of the meeting is for. And yes, they're right over there on that cart behind in the corner. So just, there you go. Thank you. And then if you fill it out, just bring it up to Ellen here at our desk at the very end of our desk here table. Just bring it up to this right here, and we'll make sure we put you in where you can speak. So again, please hold to the 3 minutes, and we'll move from there. Move forward. Regarding their consent agenda this evening, is there anybody who would like to pull anything? Nope. And there's no changes or anything. Everything is as is, how it was posted. All right. We need to. Okay. So we have a first by. Hold on for 1 second. First by Trustee Mack and a second by Trustee Cooper. Hold on, I just want to record that. All those in favor to approve the consent agenda, 7-0. Okay. All right. This is announcements from the board on past activities that we've done or anything. Trustee Millerick.
School's open. That's exciting. I have no other comments.
Okay, thank you.
The focus is now on the kids.
Yes. Trustee Nell.
We had a good time at the Hamilton Ice Cream Social, meeting the teachers, and then went over to San Jose Middle School for their open house and cruised around a bit. So things are looking good, and I appreciate all the hard work everyone's done to get school started.
Thank you. Trustee Gasson.
So I too went to back to school nights, but I kind of had a reason to. So I was at Sinaloa and Pleasant Valley. I also attended a couple of back to school coffees as well. The biggest thing I did was the Gab with Gasson, which was this past Friday at Dr. Insomniac's. Leslie Benjamin came with me, and we actually had 12 people, and we only pushed it out a week before on social media, so that was great. I am already scheduling 2 other ones. I'm trying to rotate the time and day of week because I know people's schedules are all different. So we're looking at Sunday, September 22nd at 8:30 a.m. at San Marin Starbucks, and Thursday, October 17th at 5:30 p.m. at the Vintage Starbucks. That seems to be the only one open that late. So if anybody wants to join me, just let me know. But I think it was a really great experience.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Mack.
Just a couple things. I attended the Equity Forum with Superintendent Tony Thurmond over down there at Terra Linda High School. Great event, eye-opening. I'm really excited about his energy. I think we're going to see some progress, which is great. We have an ally finally.
Yeah.
And then as well, right afterward, I attended the Marin County School Board Association kind of kickoff dinner, and that was there with Trustee Cooper and Superintendent Casca, and it was good to see all the other trustees, and here we go.
Trustee Cooper?
Yes, I did attend that same dinner. It was great. It was good to see a lot of new faces, including our new superintendent. I also attended Rancho and Linwood back-to-school nights. They were great, well-attended. Campuses look great.
Trustee Aguila?
Yeah, attended the Hamilton parent back-to-school night, and I'm also excited for the school year, and I can't wait to have our student trustees joining us in the meetings.
Great. And I think they will be joining us the next meeting. I as well was able to get to back to school night at Hamilton. Hamilton was popular. And while I was there, I was told that a little shout out to Cassandra Diaz, who works in our IT department. She was amazing at getting people signed up on Schoolment. We are well aware that Schoolment has not been a friend to anybody, and we're getting the kinks worked out if we can. But she sat with parents and just made sure that they were able to get everything for hours, I think. And so I'm just doing a shout out to her. And I know there are many office managers who are a big part of helping get things loaded. But I was told personally that she had done some great work there. And then I did the equity forum with Tony Thurman. That was really good and informative. And he is going to be a great state superintendent. I'm looking forward to that and him in that position. Superintendent Casca?
Oh, yeah, great start to the school year. Managed to get out to all the schools the first 2 days of school. Really tried not to be in the way and not to be a hindrance, but still get out there and say hi to the schools. Also made it to a number of the open houses. And I just got to say, you're doing shout outs, a big shout out to our staff, the classified and certificated staffs who work really hard to make sure that we had a positive launch to the school year for our students.
Great. Thank you. Yes, Trustee Millerick.
To the superintendent, do we think we're at the point where we've got all the students located in their final classrooms, or do we still have some adjustments to make?
There are some very minor adjustments to make. Hamilton School has some particularly large classes at a couple of, one grade in particular, so we have to do some balancing there. But for the most part, we're pretty balanced out.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right, moving on to our non-agenda public comment. Like I said, I do have quite a few. So so everybody knows where they're gonna, the cards are gonna lie here. I have some that say heat plan and some that say air conditioning. I'm putting those all together under the heat plan agenda item, which is 13B. And then I have some school closure, special ed, and some other items that are gonna be on the non-agenda public comment. So those are gonna be right now. The first three speakers are Karen McCormish, Emily King, Alicia, oh, sorry, Alicia. You know, all right. Those are the first three.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I did a lot of thinking in between the last board meeting and this board meeting, and I was a little bit terrified when you were asking a little bit when we were talking about the board asking for a parcel tax, because the look was that, yeah, we'll work with you, and I thought immediately you were going to ask me to start dialing for dollars. And what I've been thinking about over the last 2 weeks is, I've done the dialing for dollars before, dialing for a vote. And it would be really hard right now in the community to put out a parcel tax. And I'll tell you why. You have 3 schools that don't have air conditioning. That is a health issue at the schools. You have a few of the schools that were promised things for the bond measure that aren't getting them because we're building a $25 million auditorium, and we're working on projects that might be bigger than we should. In other words, we're putting on the polish before we fix the plumbing. So I also went back to my site and asked them about the deferred maintenance, because that was another thing that you talked about at last time's board meeting. And we have several classrooms that still have plumbing issues that have been getting work orders put in for the last 3 years. So one of the options in the last board meeting that you talked about is wait until it's broke and then fix it as one of the possible strategies that you could use. And it's not even happening now. So I think that before you think about putting a parcel tax out to the voters, that you need to make sure that you have good fiscal faith with them, and that you're doing things that are making the schools livable on a daily basis, and that you're budgeting your bond dollars in those ways before you ask them for a partial tax. Because I think it's going to be a hard sell.
Hi, my name is Emily King. I was here last time discussing special education, and I'm back about the same thing. So I hope that got you thinking. Tonight, I want to ask you to sort of continue thinking about the same kind of thing. Someone mentioned your comment, Superintendent Koska, about the hate flyers that had been distributed, and I thought it was really good. You said the Novato Unified School District stands for equity and inclusion for every member of the human race. Our students come to us from an infinite range of backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, religious and political beliefs, and all our students have a fundamental right to feel welcome, safe, and included at our schools. Thank you. I love that. That's what we should be doing here. For a lot of reasons, I've chosen not to stand here and sort of recount the horrors of the past 4 years with my daughter. Please know that they're not at all inconsistent with what other people have told you, and they're definitely not consistent with that aspiration for our community. At the risk of being perceived as overly negative, I do want to sort of remind you that the community of parents and families of children with disabilities is really small. We talk to each other, we know each other, everyone knows everyone. I know from that community a lot of families who have moved out of Novato or pulled their kids from Novato schools because of special education, both their disabled children and their children without disabilities. The people who move, the ADA money, even for the children without disabilities, goes out of Novato. Given that NUSD is facing declining enrollment and is resourcing measures to increase enrollment, it seems that this should be concerning. More broadly, the idea that families of children with disabilities feel the need to move away because the local education authority can't serve their children is really sad. As a community, we should want to do better than that. So what I'm asking you to do, because this is a big thing, is to add a mental checkbox for special education to your observations and decision making. When you're observing at a school site or considering a policy or thinking about a change, think about whether special education has even been considered and whether what you're seeing is consistent with NUSD's mission of providing an innovative and personalized learning experience for every student in a caring and supportive environment to develop the knowledge and skills necessary to be successful and productive citizens. When you start asking how students with disabilities were considered in decision making, it gets other people thinking. The more people who hear this question asked, the more they'll ask it themselves, and you can influence the dialogue around this issue in a very powerful way. So I'd encourage you all to try to think about that every time you're making a decision or looking at something that's going on. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Alicia Incho Ogie. I was here a couple weeks ago as well, talking about special education. My daughter is a Novato resident, but attends school in Mill Valley. Tonight, I wanted to just briefly read a little bit to you from the National Council on Disability, their report from 2018 on the segregation of students with disabilities. Data shows us that when students are included, they have more access to the general curriculum and effective instruction. They achieve at higher rates of academic performance, and they acquire better social and behavioral outcomes. In addition, when educated in inclusive classrooms, peers without disabilities experience either a positive academic and social impact or at least no negative impact on academic achievement. Since 1990, research studies have demonstrated a variety of benefits for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are educated in general education classrooms. Membership and participation benefits include increased student engagement, improved communication, improved expressive language and literacy skills, more satisfying and diverse friendships, higher levels of social engagement with peers without disabilities, less disruptive behavior, and more social competence. The National Longitudinal Transition Study examined the outcomes of 11,000 students with a range of disabilities and found that more time spent in a general education classroom was positively correlated with fewer absences from school, fewer referrals for disruptive behavior, and better outcomes after high school in the areas of employment and independent living. Although students with extensive support needs, like students with intellectual disabilities, multiple disabilities, and autism, have higher rates of segregated schooling, research shows that these students actually acquire more academic benefits when included in general education instruction as well, particularly increases in literacy skills. Now, as far as students without disabilities, their benefits are benefits to students without disabilities who learn in general education classes with students who need extensive support include reduced fear of human differences, increased comfort and awareness of differences, growth in social cognition, improvements in self-concept, growth of ethical principles, and caring friendships. Teachers, parents, and paraeducators also believe that students without disabilities benefit when educated with peers who have extensive support needs by developing greater empathy, greater awareness and tolerance of differences, learning to help others, and acquiring specific skills. I just wanted to share that because I thought that was something that might be beneficial going forward, and I will be emailing all of you, so you'll have this. Thank you.
The next three speakers are Jennifer Norman, who's also with Wyatt Wynn, I believe, and Dante. Sorry, Dante, I cannot read the last name. Esperars, I think it's it. Espars. And Mark Perry.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Norman. I am a teacher at San Marin High, and this is my son, Wyatt, and he goes to Rancho, and he wanted to say something because he heard that his school might close. Go ahead.
I don't want my school to close because I like my teacher and it's fun.
Mm-hmm. I also want to say that as a teacher, I think it's a really it's a school that's run very well. I see people of all kinds of backgrounds thriving there, and I can't imagine why we would close a school that's producing, there's wonderful learning, and I can't collect my thoughts. There's parent involvement, and I just hope that we don't close Rancho, or any of the schools, because it's a wonderful school. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dante Esparza. I'm a parent at Rancho, and I have 2 kids. Sorry. I love that school. I volunteer a lot of my time there. The staff, the school, I volunteered last year a lot of my time there because it's a great school. I don't want my kids to move to a different school because they have great teachers. And I just feel the love there at Rancho, and I would be sad for my kids because I want the best education for my kids, and I feel that Rancho is a really good school, and my kids are really happy there. And I think it starts with the teachers, and the teachers have been amazing so far that my kids have had. And I'd hate to lose a great school like that. And I'd love to I wasn't involved as much with the school more years because I was working a lot more, but I'm involved more. I've just been hearing more rumors since last year. It's just scary. And unfortunately, parents, fathers don't involve in school as much as the mothers do. And so I'm trying to be more involved because my kids are important. My education is important. And as a student, as an employee, I love this school and the district, and I love Novato because I live here. And they're in 2nd grade now and 4th grade. And then next year, if we're still here, then my daughter would move to Rancho, would be the 3rd. My daughter is 4. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Please consider, if you guys already made your decisions, that Rancho is a really good school. And
We haven't made any decisions, so
but
let's make
we-
that
but we-
clear.
but we really love
There's
that
nothing's
school.
been made.
Anything that we can do, we would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Mark Perry. I'm also a parent of a 1st grader at Rancho, and I have a pre-K son who will be going to Rancho hopefully next year. I'm also on the PTA board, and I'm a teacher myself at another institution. It's really hard. Last year, there was the school size committee who recommended not to close any schools, and then that seemed to be accepted. And then maybe 2 months later, we hear rumors about we're going to close 1 or 2 schools anyway. It just makes it hard on the parents. It must be hard on the kids, hard on the teachers. It makes it hard for anyone to invest anything in the schools when you think that it might just be gone in a couple years. And so it's just difficult. I wish there was a decision that was just made and that was it. But we keep getting this emotional roller coaster, which is not good for investment. I wish that Rancho was treated like the other schools. I wish it had air conditioning, as well as the other 2 that don't. It's just sad that in this sort of this county that we live in, so wealthy, that we have schools where the kids are complaining about the heat. We have schools where people don't know if they'll be there in a couple years. Later today, I think on the agenda is the utilization of Hill Middle School, which was closed a few years ago. It seems like if you haven't figured out the utilization for that, I don't know how you're preparing to close anything else. I don't know if there's been any studies done on the financial benefit or not of closing Hill Middle School. I read an article about Chicago, maybe about 6 years ago, closed 50 of their schools because of budgets. They pledged that consolidating the schools would help the students out for some reason, whatever people come up with these reasons. Turns out the study was done last year that pretty much all the students who were displaced had worse test scores because of the closing. The families lost their sense of community, and I just don't want that to happen to Rancho or to any other school. So I'd support a parcel tax or whatever else it takes so that we don't close any schools.
Yeah. All right, our last 3 speakers for the non-agenda public comment is Catherine Topping and Catherine Lynch and Jack Watson.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Topping. I am a Rancho parent. My daughter is in 1st grade. Ironically, I actually grew up here in Novato, attended public schools up into high school because at that point, I'm not going to date myself, schools weren't very good. There wasn't a lot of investment. The community wasn't as strong as it really is now, and I went to private high school, as did my 2 younger brothers. I've moved back to Novato. I'm raising a family here. We have a son who's 4 who will hopefully attend Rancho, and as you heard from many others here tonight, you know, Rancho is a special place. It is not the same type of schools that I attended, more than I'd like to say how many years ago. And it's really because there is a community, and it's a community of very invested parents. I'm probably not as involved as many others here are in the school, but it's special, and the teachers are special. And I can't argue with the economics. If there's declining enrollment, that is true. But I do see such potential in Novato, especially given a strong school system, to continue to attract people who will, you know, support a community, who will, you know, invest in the schools. And so I just urge you to consider that really as a long-term investment, not just in our children's future and education, but really the health of our community overall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Lynch. I have a first grader at Rancho. I actually borrowed her notebook today to take some notes. And I just wanted to kind of add to what the others have said. We moved here 2 years ago. My husband was born and raised here. And we were really excited about attending this school. It has a wonderful reputation. Kind of everyone we talk to knows about Rancho and has known for years. And I think it really draws people in. And so, you know, I don't know, I know there hasn't been a decision yet, and I know it'll take many steps to make that decision. I, like Mark, would really appreciate communication to be as clear as possible, because the rumors are kind of putting a damper on the excitement around the year. And but around recruiting people, we have tons of young families in our neighborhood who were very excited to move here and were very excited about the school, and that's been impacted a bit by the rumors. And so kind of however we can move this forward, however we can advocate, we have a really strong, engaged group, and we're ready to get going. And so I appreciate just the communication we've had thus far and the future communication we'll get. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, that concludes, Jack, that's right, Mr. Watson.
My name is Jack Watson, and I wasn't here to talk about your Rancho school, but I will in a minute. I had 3 children that attended there, starting 50 years ago. There's a culture there of parent participation, and that's the key. But I just want to, I'm here for that stadium, the lights. I was of the understanding that the Superior Court judge was going to come up from southern Marin County and yay or nay whether we're going to have the lights on there in the field. That field is not just for the benefit of the high school there, it's for the benefit of the community, for sports in general, for recreation. It's something we can really be proud of. I mean really be proud of. My wife and I are the starting first booster presidents at San Marin High School. And that happened about 45 years ago. 45 years ago? No, that was, let's see. The son that I'm thinking about when we became the president and the vice president, he's now 45 years of age, so you know. But at any rate, what I wanted to mention there is that the families there felt so strongly about that athletic field that they got behind it and they put in the Booster Club over at San Marin over $1 million. The school district threw in another $700,000. And now we await the decision of a Superior Court judge as to whether the reports are going to pass in terms of noise and sound and air pollution and everything else. And the second report that was made out there has passed the test beautifully. So I was here tonight to hear what the judge had to say, but I guess it's not going to be tonight. Is that what the?
No, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to mention to the Rancho people that are here, you know, and I know, and we all know that it really takes effort and know-how and persistence to get your child into that school, right? That's really special. That's really neat. But it takes a lot of, a lot of people have been turned away. Even back in our day, it was the same way. It would be nice if, like, when you're making a loaf of French bread, what they do in order to make it consistently good is they save a little bit of the starter dough, and in the next batch that they mix of dough for French bread, they've got the same kind of loaf and quality. In this case, it goes back to Larabrew French bread in San Francisco many years ago. So you've got the culture there, you've got everything. And you know,
Mr. Watson, you're speaking to the board. I just want to make that clear.
Excuse me, I am speaking to the board, yeah.
Okay.
So you have something there's special and like to see it replicated, not only at Rancho, but see if you can get it started in some of the other schools also. I'm sure if we get those parents involved, that's the big difference at Rancho. And thank you for the time to speak. Has the decision been made on those lights yet?
No, nothing's been made.
When's that going to come down?
We're unsure.
Yeah, it did say in the paper that was on the 3rd of September that that's just going to happen here. And that's what brought me out.
Okay, I apologize
Yeah.
for that. I
Yeah.
didn't see that myself in the paper, but no, we're unsure on the date of when that will be coming forward to the board.
To show you how things change over time, too, when we took over as the president and the vice president at San Marin High School and formed the Boosters Club that you have today, it was for football only, and it was only until they built out the stands that the Boosters was in existence. After that, there was no more booster organization there. And then the new principal called my wife and I in and said she'd like to talk to us, and she said, would you like the good news or the bad news? And I said, well, it doesn't make any difference if you just let us know what is it. She said, well, it's not going to just be for football, it's going to be for all sports, and it's not going to be just for boys, it's going to be for girls too. And that's another aspect there of that field today with women and their participation. So ladies, keep speaking up, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that doesn't conclude our non-agenda public comment. We will move on to our first item of the evening, is our district elections. This is our public hearing number 3. We had 2 previous public hearings. As our report says, one was May 7th, the first public hearing, and the second public hearing was May 21st. And after that public hearing, we said we'd bring it back once we were back in session for this school year to start back up again and have the demographer draw up some maps for us, which is what we're going to have this evening. And I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is open the public hearing. I have one blue card for somebody to speak about the maps being presented. So that if anybody would like to speak before the board on any of the maps, please fill out a blue card and bring it up to us. And there we go. So I will call up the one speaker I do have is Zach Griggy. Oh, there he is. Yeah. You're back. Come on up. You're up. You're our one speaker. So I'm going to go ahead and open this public hearing. And we are holding to the 3 minutes. Just
Well, I'll see how I manage. Well,
okay.
Well, all this talk about elementary school kind of reminded me of my time in elementary school. I'd like to ask all the members of the board if you're familiar with the game of telephone. It goes something like this. You got a line of kids, and you whisper in the first kid's ear some phrase, say, apple tart. And they go down the line whispering the phrase. And it gets misstated, misheard. And when you get towards the end, you end up with something like Snapple fart. And totally bungled, totally not what was said originally. Now, the reason I bring this up tonight is because this board is asking for public input on 7 trustee area maps or districts that will be used possibly for the next decade worth of trustee elections, at least for the next 2, if not for the next 12. Now, at the same time, while seeking this input, the board has provided exactly 0 ways for the public to submit maps of their own. And so it brings us back to this game of telephone, where we can scream as much as we want into this microphone here, but there's no guarantee that that will be reflected, that it will be incorporated. The only way to get pure public input is to allow the public to submit maps themselves. Now, with that out of the way, let's play a game of telephone. I'd like to first start with, I, as a resident of Hamilton and Indian Valley, divorced parents, long story, have taken particular issue with a few of the trustee areas. Can we bring up scenario 3? There we go. First of all, as a resident of Indian Valley, I take particular issue with trustee area 5 here, because it, quite frankly, defies the district's criteria. It says right here in the board's criteria, each area will follow man-made and natural geographic features as much as possible. Trustee area 5 here jumps across not 1, but 2 ridgelines, going across, jumping from Indian Valley down into the country club, and then down again into the lower Pacheco Valley. You cannot drive across that district without going through at least 3 other trustee areas. That is not contiguous in my book, and is not representative of the people of Novato. Now, the second area I'd like to take issue with is reflected across all 4 scenarios that you have laid out tonight, and that is the pairing of Hamilton with Black Point. Those 2 are completely separate communities. In fact, the only way to get between those 2 is to take Highway 101 and Highway 37 out there. And in order to draw those into the same district, you have to jump across Novato Creek. It's an illogical pairing. Now, I understand why the board did it, to try to assure all incumbents represent multiple schools, but it is an inconvenient one and also does not reflect the will of Novato voters. So I ask this board to reconsider these maps and to allow the public to submit maps of their own, and ideally not jump across geographic barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I do not have any more public comment on that. So at this point in time, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'm going to turn it back over to the board and staff. And we have our demographer here. Corey, correct? Yeah.
Madam President?
Yes.
At some point during this discussion, I'd like staff to bring up the process and kind of the dates that we set out to.
I think that's how we'll kick it off.
For public comment.
For public comment?
Well, based on.
Oh,
the
okay, yes, I see
exact
what you're saying.
comments. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, thank you, Trustee Cooper. We've had a series of meetings on this topic. First one on March 21st, the board adopted a resolution to begin the process of moving us from citywide elections to district elections. Then on May 7th, we had Corey Burbeck here from Cooperative Strategies, who presented us with a process and helped us with some of the criteria that we would use in creating the maps. Also on May 7th, we had public hearing 1, which was to get input into the design of the maps. We also talked about whether we would have 5 or 7 trustee areas. Then on May 21st, we had public hearing 2, where again we got some input into the design of the maps. We talked again about 5 or 7 trustee areas and the pros and cons associated with each. And at that point, we decided to land on 7 trustee areas. Some of the considerations that we gave to the demographers, mostly at their suggestion, were that each area shall contain nearly equal numbers of inhabitants. Each area will be drawn to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. Each area will be compact and contiguous as much as possible. Each area will respect communities of interest as much as possible. Each area will follow man-made and natural geographic features as much as possible. And then the trustees agreed, with these considerations and asked the demographer to not consider incumbents' current residences as a criterion when they were drawing the trustee areas. Some other suggestions provided by the trustees were, when at all possible, having more than one school in a given area, not separating neighborhoods, and having majority-minority areas where possible. And that brings us forward to today with public hearing number 3. Some future steps that we'll be taking on September 10th, we'll have 2 public input sessions. One will be at 1 o'clock. They'll both be here in this room. So one will be from 1 to 2 on September 10th, and then again, we'll have another one from 6 to 7 on September 10th here in this room. So we're trying to catch people who can be here during the daytime and people who can be here during the evening. After that, we'll have public hearing 4. Depending on the feedback we get, that could either take place on our late September meeting or our early October meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Yes.
Superintendent Koska, is that to say that the speaker mentioned that he'd like to submit his own designs, his own maps? Can he do that at either one? Is there a mechanism in place for that to happen?
He could certainly provide us with input on the map. If he wanted to take a map and alter it, he could certainly present that to the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we do not have the electronic tool to what other agencies have used, public agencies have used. We decided as a board not to do that.
Yeah.
So, and I think he can attend the 10th, either in the, from 1, anybody can attend from 1 to 2 or from 6 to 7.
Okay.
And our demographer will be there, and he'll have it an interactive at that time. Is that correct? Okay.
Great.
And be able to move things around then. Yes, please come up. Sorry about that. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so at the community input technology, being technology, we'll have a laptop that'll allow us the opportunity in the community to have us analyze in real-time opportunities. What has worked well in the past is if someone likes to take the map out and draw with pen over one of the existing maps that's on the district website, we then can get that emailed and look at that ahead of time as well, just to see if it works. So that can be done as well. And again, where we start with these maps, as you know, this is the first post-map public hearing, and I can attest to where the maps start today to where they finish. Sometimes they look exactly the same, and sometimes all scenarios that we start with get thrown out the window, and we have new scenarios of the next map. So that's really, once you see the maps and see what they look like, is where we start to get a lot of the creative juices flowing, I would say, and we start to see alterations made from there. So with that, I think the plan was for me just to walk through the 4 different scenarios tonight.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Perfect.
And get some feedback from the board.
Yeah.
And maybe we could at some point narrow down to a couple maps. Is that the end result, or does it matter?
At this time, I would say if there are scenarios that the board feels just don't work,
right?
Then that feedback is greatly appreciated.
Okay.
So I think the superintendent did a great job of identifying some of the key considerations. And for those who weren't able to study the maps beforehand, the trustee areas are they multicolored, and we'll go over those. But additionally, as mentioned, at the elementary schools, we wanted to try and look at opportunities to have the trustee area dissect as many or multiple elementary school boundaries. And the elementary school boundaries are those blue lines. The other consideration that was made was trying to keep downtown Novato in one trustee area. That also allowed us the opportunity to try and create a trustee area where the voters from a protected class had a larger influence than the average of the district. So with that, we've got 4 scenarios to run through tonight. And so I'll quickly just kind of give the rundown and then kind of highlight where we see the greater influence from the voters of a protected class. So I was trying that. And there's also maps, by the way, on the table for all 4 scenarios. So if we want, I can hold on while people out in the hallway. So I can pause real quick if people want to run out and look at those. That's probably, too small.
Do board members need a copy, hard copy? You're all good. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll follow direction. That's probably better. We can see 1, 2. Yeah, we can see all 7. Good, go ahead. Okay. Alrighty. So to start, the trustee area numbers are always going to be represented by the same color. All this, looking at this from your all's view, this is yellow. When I refer to yellow, this will be trustee area 1. And it looks the same, but this is gold. And for the next time, we'll make sure those colors are differentiated a little bit better, so that way the audience can see those as separate trustee areas. So trustee area number 1, that's going to cover the southeast portion of the district. It's going to be south of the 37 and east of the 101 right there. The unfortunate part about this is that doesn't follow, we start by not following our very first rule, is that does color all of the Hamilton Meadow Park Elementary School boundary. So that is an area where we were unable to create the multiple attendance boundaries within a trustee area. Trustee area number 2 is going to be represented by the green color. Now, trustee area number 2, it does bisect the 101, or to cover both sides of the 101, and it wraps around the entire north end of the district, and it kind of has the boundary on the northwest end of the San Moran High School and San Ramon Elementary School. Trustee area 3 is we're able to accomplish having all of downtown Novato in one trustee area, with the south boundary kind of bunching up right there to the little bit higher than Louis Sutton Elementary School. In trustee area number 3 is where we're able to see a greater representation of the Hispanic Latino population. The trustee area, is the red color right here. Oh, red. Yep. Magenta salmon, yeah, I'm not that creative with colors, I apologize. And so that is where we see greater representation. So the district average is 10.48% according to the CVAP. In this trustee area, the Hispanic Latino population comes in at 20.83%. So nearly double the district average. So allowing for that, trying to achieve that greater influence. Trustee area number 4 is going to cover the entirety of the west area of the district, and that's that blue color over here, and it's going to work its way down south. So unfortunately, in trustee area number 4, we again run into where one trustee area covers the entirety of a elementary school boundary, and that's with Pleasant Valley Elementary School. Trustee area number 5 is this purple area right here, and that's right in the middle of the district. Its western boundary is with Lou Sutton Elementary School, as well as the south is all the way down to covers Novato High School. Trustee area number 7 is trustee number 6. That's the gold portion I mentioned earlier. That's everything south of the Novato High School, and encompasses right in the center there is San Jose Intermediate, and goes east towards butts up against the Loma Verde Elementary School, and then all the way to the south end of the district. Trustee area number 7 is that teal color that you see in the south middle portion of the district. That hugs the 101 and encompasses Loma Verde Elementary School. So would it be beneficial for the board for me to stop at this time and have any questions regarding the trustee areas? Because it kind of gets lost in the mix. Everything starts changing around, and if you kind of look back, it's kind of hard to recall.
Right, I agree. Trustee Mack?
So just to be clear, that this is a scenario 1 we're looking at.
Yep.
Correct. And I'll just be candid. It's not my favorite scenario, but that's okay. Whatever. We'll figure that out. But some of the things that stand out to me that I want to avoid at all costs is, and this scenario does it as well as 3, I think, maybe even 2, but certainly 1 and 3, splitting San Marin up into 2 separate districts. The San Marin neighborhood, the historic San Marin neighborhood, pretty much south and east of San Marin Drive, all of it is San Marin as far as I'm concerned. And the way we have this here is it looks like it's San Carlos that's splitting it up. And so it looks like San Luis Way is moved out of the as an example.
Yep.
And that is very much a San Marin neighborhood. So basically my idea is in order to preserve community, that needs to be one district together. And that's happening in scenarios 4 and maybe 3. but that's the one thing that pops out to me. Then down to my neighborhood, and I think you guys would agree with this, but it looks like in scenario 2, you jump my area out over 101 into Hamilton. I just think it makes so much sense to use 101 as a split. Jumping over it. Hamilton neighborhood is different than Loma Verde and, Marin Oaks and all that. So, but I would say Pacheco Valley.
You're on number 2, right? We're sticking with number 1.
I'm sorry, I was jumping over to.
But that's a good point.
2,
That
you're
was
right.
my-
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Totally
Yes,
agree.
I'm jumping around a little
That's
bit.
all right.
But I guess where I'm going is, my 7 area. I think there's much more affinity to Pacheco Valley than there is across the highway.
Okay. I'm gonna you might grab a pen real quick just to get this written down?
Sure. And I apologize for jumping the gun if I am at all, but
Add it up with me here to start.
I think we all want to do this to a certain degree. And last point I'll make is I do see the difficulty with sector 1, whatever district 1, probably trying to get numbers, but I do understand how Black Point doesn't necessarily fit with Hamilton.
Right, I
I mean,
agree.
it probably fits much more with 2.
Yeah.
Because the people in Black Point want to be with the people in Greenpoint.
It's, the elementary the elementary boundary includes South Point would be like in 2.
Yeah.
If you looked at the elementary boundary. Yeah.
Well, it looks like in all scenarios, Black Point is part of
In our-
District 1.
Yes.
And right.
But in the Olive elementary boundary,
Oh, it reaches even further, yeah.
Black Point is in Olive, goes to Olive.
Yeah, so I think there's something to be said
It's
for
something
doing what we can to keep Black Point in District 2 with the Greenpoint folks. But anyway, I'll stop,
Yep.
because I know
All right.
everybody's got something else to say.
Trustee Gasson, and then Trustee Millerick.
So one of the immediate things I'm noticing is I feel bad because some of this originally I was like, how did we figure this out? But I think the challenge that we've created unintentionally is by putting or making the suggestion that we about the school boundaries because they very much segment the whole Pleasant Valley area or the Hamilton area. I mean, I still have the mindset that we're for everybody, so I kind of say that
Right.
side, but maybe prioritizing for you might be easier if we don't use that. How do the lines come into play? Because just from what you're saying and just what I just heard you say too, I think that some of these goofy lines and reasons for, to get Hamilton to be inclusive of another, or the yellow, what is that, yellow trustee area 1? So, so then you're going across these weird streets and, so we're almost negating what we were trying to do in some ways, or at least my observation from what you've said.
Yeah, no, and completely. And again, with the first trustee area, that trustee area 1, having the 37 and 101, that creates a very clear boundary. It does get all of one elementary school, but again, as you see when we were doing this, having the different elementary schools was definitely a priority. And I think given historically, when that's the direction, it's very important for the reason that you said, making sure that there's no one trustee represented by one school. So we can always, again, scale back the amount of, I was thinking about there's knobs. I would say the geographic knob was turned probably a little bit more down, where the elementary school boundaries and dissecting was turned a lot up. So we can always probably rescale on those knobs being turned. Yep. And so we'll look at, in this scenario, again, keeping San Marin and then on the neighborhood, and we'll work with the district staff to make sure we get all inclusive of that neighborhood so we know exactly where it's at. And that, you said that was Black Point?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I just think Black Point belongs with, across 37 with what's called Greenpoint.
Okay.
Right next to it.
Keep Belmar and Keys though.
Yeah. Trustee Millerick?
So the first question to me in this whole conversation, as soon as the guy gets off the phone.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to get my notes. I'm typing my notes.
No, I appreciate it. If you're not taking notes, we don't go home now.
I can't remember all that.
There's sort of 2 binary views you can take. One is, do we want as many trustee areas tied to a particular high school as possible, so it isn't isolated at this table? So in that model, we would say, well, there should be around San Marin, you ought to have 4 districts touching, and around Novato High, you ought to have 4 touching. And the issue isn't to keep neighborhoods together, but in fact, break neighborhoods up. That model would say, break neighborhoods up, make sure you've got diverse representation in every neighborhood. And that would take you to one extreme. And, you know, maybe number 3, right around San Marin High School, where the tips of 4 districts all sort of converge by San Marin High School, kind of looks like that, maybe. A maybe. The other extreme would to say, let's keep like for like. Let's keep neighborhoods that have some cohesion. Were they all built at the same time? Do they have a similar acreage? Should all of Indian Valley go together? Should all of Hamilton go together, similarly aged buildings? Is that a better representation for our community? And I actually haven't decided which of those I think is better. But so with that background of having not made a decision, I'd like to point out a couple of areas that I think are significant in terms of the way we draw the boundary. The first one is the one the speaker spoke to, is the Black Point, which is on the very right-hand side in yellow. Basically, that neighborhood, even though it's south of Highway 37, is an extension of the road that goes kind of north and west up Atherton. And it's more like that neighborhood. They're all large lots. They're older. Maybe they have animals on the property. It is much more cohesive in its neighborly part than Hamilton, which is down below those lakes that you've got over in the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
The lakes is Belmarin Keys, and that's more like Hamilton. Those are both pretty newer, smaller lot. Those are pretty cohesive. And what I wonder about is if you went down to the very furthest south on District 1, which I think you can't quite see on your slide, if you could move the slide.
At Mobile Home Park?
Well, yes, the mobile home park I think is outside of our district, but I think there are kids, the one over the hill. There are kids that come from west of Highway 101 down on that frontage road that all go to Hamilton, and they don't go to Loma Verde. But I'm not sure. Those are very high-density apartments right on the frontage road. Do they go to Loma? Yeah, off Alameda. Oh, okay, okay, perfect. So then I think if they go to Loma Verde, then I think the line is fine where you've drawn it on 101. So the other place I want to go up is up to the north, again. Okay, now the whatever that is, salmon color. The way that's drawn versus chart number 2. Look at number 2. See how the salmon kind of spills to the left?
Yep, and that one we have the.
And if you look at slide 2.
Lane. Yep. Simmons Lane on that one is the. There you go. Yep.
Okay, so imagine the piece that just got cut off.
Mm-hmm.
So west of Simmons, over to San Carlos, which you can't see very well.
But I see it. Gotcha.
All of those houses, not quite the way you've drawn it, but all of those houses in the area that's now green on this slide were built in the 50s, and then San Marin was built in the 70s. Most the houses you get to by coming off of Simmons. None of the roads go through. None of those. The only one on the map that looks like it goes through is Feliz Drive, and there's actually a barrier on the road, so it is not a through road, so there isn't through traffic. So if you find Feliz Drive on that,
yep,
yeah, it's on there.
Right, and and the right end of Feliz Drive, it comes off of Simmons, and you can't drive through to the west end of Feliz Drive, which you have to get from San Carlos. And they're very different in terms of populations. When the city repaved the streets, they repaved San Marin, but around Feliz Drive East, and there was a fight for like 5 years, and the roads were falling apart, and those citizens got very secondary services, that older pre-San Marin neighborhood. So I think that we have to decide how that's going to fall. That everything west of Simmons looks cleaner on a map. maybe that's where it should be. But those are, and Trustee Mack noticed the same issue. That's a way of, those are two very different boundaries. One is how do you drive to it, go down Simmons or go down San Marin, and the other is by looking at a map and drawing it on straight lines on roads.
Yeah, and I think maybe the feedback we heard earlier was maybe are those two, depending on what the roads and houses look like, but maybe those are communities that are alike in terms of the people living in the houses.
They're about 20 years apart in age, and they're similar, but they're not the same, and they're, you know. Yeah.
So, again.
But I think all the kids go to San Ramon. I think they do.
So keeping in mind the community.
So there's cohesion. So if you follow the cohesion model, you ought to go down Simmons. If you follow the other model, you ought to go down San Carlos.
And again, we can prepare both scenarios that have both and see how the community.
But to Ross's point on scenarios 1 and 3, because you're advocating a little bit for perhaps, you know, maybe the Felice split, but the problems with 1 and 3 is they still slice off a part of San Marin that is part of San Marin, namely San Luis Way.
Yeah, they do. Well, and the San Luis Way, I think, is just wrong on this map. San Luis Way should be included.
And the courts that are off
right,
of it.
Right, it should be the way you drive a car, not the way you draw a map.
That is the southern boundary of San Marin.
Okay, and what we'll have to do is we'll have to go look at how the building blocks of the map are.
Sure.
And
You missed one street when you drew the map.
Okay, and we'll look at how the building blocks of that area are to see how it can be divided up.
I think it's San Luis is the one they missed.
Yeah, it is San Luis, and the courts.
Okay, Trustee Cooper and then Trustee Gasson.
So starting on scenario number 1, this is a good discussion, I think. I'm in agreement about the Black Point area. Let's include that into area 2. I think that makes scenario number 2. No, area number 2. And I think I'm in agreement with you guys regarding this San Marin neighborhood, and I think using Simmons as you've shown in scenario number 2 seems to make sense. I also like in district number 3 or trustee area number 3, scenario number 2, where you've stayed southeast of that Simmons Lane, and you're moving to make up for the population just over to Center Road, it looks like. And so that's all kind of similar population, housing age, and housing stock, et cetera. Yeah, so that's it. We can talk more about the other ones, but that's my comments.
I think if you draw maps following ridge lines instead of roads are right in the middle of the valley with people on the left and right. Ridge lines, you come either from here this way and stop, or you come from this way and stop. They're harder to find, but it would be an interesting map.
You could get
if you looked at number 2, you get a line right down Atherton Avenue.
So maybe that's a good opportunity to go over scenario 2 real quick, just the way.
Yeah. Sure.
Good way to move us along.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to. No, this is what this is for.
That was my whole job for tonight.
No. That I was just trying to get the community. So I'll go to the. We're already on it. And like you said, I think I maybe have used the analogy when I was here the first time. Like when I ask everyone to draw a trustee area map before they've ever seen one, like I say, it's like drawing a horse when I just tell you to draw hooves and a long face and a hair for a tail. Everyone's going to draw something very different. Once you see what a horse looks like, you're like, oh, I know how to draw a horse. And so that's kind of what you always run into in this process. So scenario number 2, I think what you'll see is that once you do make a corresponding move, like imagine with this one, you really can't see it because we're zoomed up on the center of the district. It's almost like we just kind of turned everything a little bit counterclockwise. And once we do that, you'll see the corresponding actions to make sure we're staying within that 10% variance requirement. And again, as mentioned earlier, when the next census comes out, we're going to have to reanalyze the trustee area map. And we want to make sure we're taking into consideration having lower variances, so not necessarily redoing it by having a 9% variance, knowing there has been, more people added to the community. So with that, trustee area number 1, we now do, again, in this scenario, we're looking at crossing multiple elementary school boundaries. We achieved that under this scenario. with trustee area number 1 moving further north, going all the way up into Olive Elementary School. Trustee area number 2, the corresponding move for the neighborhood of San Ramon, adds that circled, so that's now going all the way to Simmons Lane, and there's a little bit portion based off the census block, but that again, that entire neighborhood is now included in trustee area number 2. It still is the entirety of the northern boundary of the district. Trustee area number 3 again is that center salmon color. It keeps all of downtown Novato in one trustee area. The big change for trustee area number 3, of that salmon is it goes all the way down to Lou Sutton Elementary School, and that is now in that trustee area number 3 boundary. Trustee area number 4 is the blue boundary on the west. It doesn't move as much south, but now moves further east into the center of the district. Trustee area 5 comes more south. The purple color right there comes all the way down to San Jose Intermediate. And then trustee area 6, the gold, has 101, then comes east, and then goes down the southern portion. And then the teal no longer goes as high up on 101, but essentially now also crosses into the Hamilton Park Elementary School boundary, and is that southern portion that we were discussing earlier. Again, on this one, the last one I mentioned, we have about 20% in trustee area number 3 as the influence for the Hispanic Latino population. On this scenario, it's down a little bit to 18.63. So still about 8% higher than the district average, but not as high as the first scenario. Cool.
Yeah.
Trustee Gasson, though, did you have something we can, on either one? Okay.
Thank you. Like Vanna White up here.
Okay, 3.
Alrighty, we're now on to trustee area number 3. This is hard
Yeah.
for me to see.
Yeah.
Footnotes here. Trustee area number 3, again, we're back to, it's very similar to the scenario 1 we saw with trustees areas 1, 2, and 3. Very minimal change. Again, we're using that 37 and 101. San Ramon Elementary School, we had that same split that we saw west, where it kind of bifurcates that neighborhood. Same western boundary set by San Marin High School. The big difference is in trustee area number 3, we actually go up north of San Marin neighborhood, that San Marin Drive a little bit in that neighborhood, and again, to make sure we're in that variance requirement. In this one, again, we keep downtown Novato in trustee area number 3, and the percentage of the Hispanic Latino population is 19.95% under this scenario. The blue the blue trustee area number 4, that's where we see the big change, whereas the first 2 scenarios, it covered the entirety of the western region of the district. It is now the blue portion in the center there that uses Indian Valley and Mill Road as the southern boundary, and goes north all the way to Novato Boulevard. And then in this one, trustee area 4 is the Lou Sutton Elementary School. Under this scenario, the purple again moves south all the way to the 101 from the western portion. In this one, again, we are able to, for the first time, have that trustee area 4 and have Pleasant Valley be 2 trustee areas cover the Pleasant Valley Elementary School boundary. In this one, trustee area number 6 moves north, higher north than you've seen it in the past, with the trustee area number 7, that teal color, again, moving further north again like you saw in scenario 1 and hugging the 101 as its eastern boundary. Since this map is quite different probably than the first 2 for trustees areas 4, 5, 6, and 7, is there any comments from the board?
I don't like this one, period.
I think
How
this
about
is
that?
the one Zach really would not like the most. Because I can see that purple is covering all the way from
Right.
Pacheco Valley to Pleasant Valley.
Yeah.
That's a lot of walking.
And so I think, and again,
Long driveways.
a lot of walking, trying to.
Not a fan.
Wait, what are you talking about? Gee, little.
So, what?
Horrible. I mean,
Well, it's not about that. Well, I would lose the
what it's
15
all
pounds
about,
I gained in the last election, so there we go. But I live there, and I don't like it, so. I mean, I think what I'm getting stuck on, and I'm listening to what everybody's saying, and I don't remember what Trustee Miller had said, but I think it goes back to, because we're talking about neighborhoods, and when I think it was because you're talking about San Ramon. So my daughter's now in 7th grade. So 9 years ago, I went to all those redistricting meetings as a parent because I didn't know where I lived, where we were going to be. What school? Oh my gosh, it's kindergarten. Where's my kid going to go? And a lot of those lines were drawn by those major roads. So now when we're trying to be inclusive of other schools, we're running into the problem because we use those major roads to draw the lines for those schools. So I go back to, I still would love it, or maybe we take a step back and make sure that we equally represent Novato and San Marin High, or, or, because what I'm seeing is a lot of the challenges of these little things. Like if we do, what is that, Black Point? If we take that in, then we're putting it back into the school district lines, which is, I mean, I don't know. I keep running into that. Having said all of that, when I'm looking at this, so going with that thinking, I guess I get hung up on, do we want to represent the community that we live in or diversity within that community? Saying, as a person who lives in Indian Valley, I feel like it's different being over where actually trustees Nell and Aguila live. So I don't know, I guess I get stuck on a shift of, if I'm going to represent the people that I am in the area I am, how do I effectively do that? But at the same time, it's probably good to be diverse in some ways too. I don't know if that makes any sense. But.
No, I mean, it makes complete sense. And again, geographically, we, where there's certain portions of the district, we just don't get as many residents. And so, again, taking that elementary school boundary thought process and then trying to encapsulate areas where we have large amounts of geographic space with not as many people, that was probably the thought process there that we can then reevaluate as we move to the next post-map public hearing and the community input meetings.
All right, let's move on to number 4.
Alrighty, so scenario number 4, as you can tell, will look quite different for some of the trustee areas. We've seen one before, and we recognize, again, the neighborhoods between Greenpoint, Black Point up there. In this area, this is the first time that we haven't seen San Ramon Elementary School in trustee area number 2. So again, it keeps that neighborhood together that we talked about, but it's just in a different trustee area. Trustee area number 3 actually no longer includes all of downtown Novato. And the corresponding move is we don't have as high a percentages of the Hispanic Latino in one trustee area, but we actually have it in 2 with trustee areas 3 and trustees area 7. Trustee area 4, as I mentioned, now covers the San Ramon Elementary School and surrounding neighborhood. Trustee area number 5 is the the purple color, now covers the west. Again, we do get multiple elementary school boundaries, not just Pleasant Valley Elementary School. Trustee area number 6 is now the 101 to the west and then comes back down south, with the San Jose Intermediate kind of being where we turn and come south. And then trustee area number 7 is the teal color that covers the eastern portion of Loma Verde Elementary School boundary all the way to the southern point west of the 101.
Comments? This is my favorite one. I'll just
Mine
say
as well. This one makes the most sense.
to work
at least
off
from
of,
my
the jumping off point for me.
This from my teal perspective, that works
Yeah.
for me. But also, it's very important to me. It keeps San Marin together. San Marin, I think, needs to. It's a very cohesive neighborhood. It needs to be kept together.
Trustee Miller, then
Yeah.
Trustee Aguila.
So a couple of comments. One is, as much as I would like Black Point to be like with the rest of Greenpoint, Atherton, if you look at Area 1, Debbie, in Hamilton, that neighborhood, every time you take something away, you got to add something. So you got to start pushing them over across the highway. And so maybe Black Point ends up, they're a small little community, and they just end up, I think, they're not Greenpoint, they're not San Marin, they're their own character, and I'm not sure exactly if you can actually meet the needs of that one community. Because so I do like this, and the reason I like this chart is if you look at San Marin High School has 2 trustee areas that are basically in their backyard, and that community, the green one and the blue one and the pink one, all 3 of them are close to the high school and have communities that are connected. And then if you get at the other end of town and you look at the high school, at Novato High School, which is down here somewhere, I can't find it.
Yep, right at the southern portion of the salmon color.
Salmon.
And the salmon, okay, so in that case, you get the salmon and the orange and the teal and the Hamilton. So you got, it's kind of 4 districts near one high school and 4 districts for another. And just talk politics for a little bit, or maybe money.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. The elementary schools, I think this board over a long period of time has done a fair job. There's been some this and that. And the 2 high schools, we're spending twice as much money at Novato High School for the performing arts center as we are at San Marin. We're buying fields at Novato High School. We're not buying fields at San Marin. To me, the significant balance in this community is how this board and the communities that drives this board's expectations balance between the both ends of town. And I think it's important that we look at how this balance comes out. And in this model, we get kind of 4 and 4. And that helps, because I think it's, I mean, when I first got on the board, I was the only San Marin parent. It was 6 and 1, and now we're more balanced, but it's been changed over time. And I think if we're going to do this, make this a permanent fix, which is what we're talking about, the balance between both ends of towns is important. And this one, it looks to me like does a good job of giving San Marin adequate representation on this board. I could be talked out of it. I mean, but that's the thinking that's gone, kind of why this one made some sense to me.
Trustee Gala.
Yeah.
And the neighborhoods are cohesive.
Okay.
There.
First, thank you for bringing this to us, and I also look forward to hearing back from the community if we have more ideas. I'm leaning towards 4, except there's my concern with 4 is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the only scenario where the Hispanic community is divided, correct?
So we see the lowest of the 4 scenarios, the lowest representation of one trustee area scenario being 16% is the trustee area number 3, the representation of the Hispanic Latino population. All other scenarios had higher representation in one trustee area, coming in at 18, 19, and 20%. This one has one that's at 12% and 11%, which is higher than the trustee area 4 and 7, higher than the district average, but not that much. And just given that we're not going to create a majority, but still that 20% is higher.
Yeah, because I mentioned when we first talked about this that the Latino community, we like to be united and we like to be as close together as we can. But of all these choices, I think I like the other one. The 4 is better. However, tonight we're going to adopt a resolution for the Latino community, and I think that no matter what we choose, we are resilient. And I'm hoping that the Latino community will know that no matter what we choose, that we will continue to support them. And just because we may divide them, it doesn't mean that things won't change. I mean, we will, NUSD is committed to support the Latino community as well. So whether they get divided or not. So.
No, and again, we can go back and, like I said, we're going to move these lines, and so we'll look at trying to capture, again, as much as possible, given that center portion of the district, to try and see if we can get to that 20% we were at in scenario 1, while maybe using scenario 4 as the framework for the additional scenarios based off the other feedback we received
Yes,
tonight.
thank you. I hope we get more choices.
Trustee Miller.
A simple point, in terms of measuring minority population, my concern is that we understand that we don't accidentally gerrymander people out of a role in their say. If two districts have strong Latino voices, more than 10 or 15%, that may be just as good as one having 18 or 20%. Because if all you got is one trustee on the board here representing a particular minority, that you need a second for every motion. That's in some ways a much weaker position to isolate a neighborhood to a minority and say, well, we got them covered. Now we'll just vote 6-1 against them every time. I'm not sure it's to a minority's community's benefit to put them all in one area. That sounds to me like a way of ensuring that they never get a say at all on a 7-member board. So I'm not sure that that's a good thing to want, is to have
Trustee
them all in
Aguilar.
one district.
And then Trustee Mack.
So that's exactly what I just said, is that at the beginning, I mentioned that I was in favor of keeping the community together. And then I'm saying tonight that even though that's our natural tendency to want to stick together, I'm saying that I like scenario 4, and that if we split them, it doesn't matter. We will continue to, like I said, tonight we will adopt this resolution like every year we've done. And that I'm just giving out a message to the community that it doesn't matter where we put that community, but that they know we're going to support them no matter what. So that's my new point of view as of today.
Trustee Mack and then Trustee Cooper.
So, yeah, and one of the beauties of us doing this exercise, regardless if it's 5 or 7, we're all going to be much more focused on the communities that we live amongst. Instead of trying to cover the whole town to get reelected or whatever, we can concentrate on our community, and it allows us to really focus on everybody in that community instead of just where all the doors are close to each other or something like that, you know, the usual kind of crazy things. Anyway, I think that's obvious, but I really want to reemphasize that this act is having its intended consequence, which we're going to focus more on our individual communities. So I think it's fantastic. We need to do that. But getting back to the whole 7 versus 5 thing, and this is really me talking to the community right now. Regardless of what we adopt, every one of these scenarios, there's going to be an open district. Time to step up, folks. There's going to be an open district for somebody to run. Because of the way we live close to each other in some places, every one of these scenarios, there is at least one open district sitting there wide open. And I'm pretty sure Rancho is in most of them. But anyway, just pointing that out. So heads up, folks. Politics.
Trustee Cooper.
Thank you for
And
that.
then I have one public comment that came forward, and I'm going to allow them to.
Out of all of these, my favorite is the one I would pick is option 4.
Okay.
So with that said, and what I want to underscore what Trustee Aguirre said, that even though we have all these separate trustee areas, we all represent this district as a whole, and the district's best interests are what are our best interests. Regardless of where we live or what trustee area we're in, number one bit of loyalty is to Novato Unified as a whole. So,
All right. Trustee Nell, do you want to chime in? You've been awfully quiet down there.
Well, I'm trying to remain as objective as possible. I want to hear more from the community now that the maps are out. We've had, I think we should do more to facilitate individuals for presenting their own maps. I understand we have a process in place for that, so whatever we can do to augment that is good. I'm hoping that we don't dial back too much on the elementary school lines in exchange for street lines and ridge lines, because I think diversity would suffer from that perspective. I honestly fear balkanization more than anything during this process, and but I understand it is a process, and we're going to have to work through it. Finally, I think that the idea of concentrating any one minority in one particular district is a bad idea. I really don't think that's the way to go. If we can find a way to split that up and create more than, so the idea here that in scenario 4 is we have 2 districts with a high percentage of Latino population, but I think the exact opposite, the wrong thing would be to concentrate as one minority into one particular area. That's a mistake, and I'm not really sure how that, I mean, there's a very low bullet point on our request. So I think we're doing a good job. I think we're going to get there. There's going to be some fine lines here and there, and I'm interested to hear what the community has to say when they see that we're favoring 4, and we're going to come back with some other things. And when we get down to the minutia of one street next to the other, and what alley goes where, and whose garage is on what street, and we've been there before too, but we will get through it. So that's my input for now, and
Great.
I hope that the community will step forward and give us a better idea.
Thank you. So I have one comment here, blue card, Karen McCormish, and then we'll wrap things up and move forward.
Just a quick comment, and I probably jumped the gun in filling out that form, but because I heard you guys talking about it, about keeping the equity in mind when you're drawing these district lines, because district lines have been historically used to increase marginalization. And since we're focused on equity, that I'm glad that you're keeping that in mind.
Thank you. All right, so let's wrap this up. It seems the majority of us like scenario 4. You did get some notes on regards to 1 and 2. 3 is pretty much not our friend. Not in favor of that one. So I think we can move forward, and you will bring back some additional maps at the. Why don't you clarify at the on September 10th, from 1 to 2? Will you be bringing back additional maps that we've proposed now?
We can have additional alterations made to scenario 4, and then if there's any additional feedback from the board in that time, the superintendent can email us, and we can have those scenarios already predetermined how they would kind of work given the census block.
Would we release those prior to, as soon as those maps are done, can we release those to the public?
Yeah, we'd have to do the same time requirements for any
Okay.
map that we're going to share at that time that we would just like a pre-map public hearing.
Perfect. Yes, and then the community can come submit comments, but they can also come on the 10th, as we said.
Correct.
And you can do an actual changing of the lines there.
Where most of the time, given the Wi-Fi situation, sometimes it takes a little bit of time when you're loading and reloading. We try to.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just not like a Google search, so it takes time to regenerate all the reports, but we try to, yes.
Great. Are we, board members, are we good? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Corey, very much. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on. Let me just make sure I have everything organized here. Moving on to our first staff report. This is the 2019-20 student enrollment and staffing update. We had a staffing update at our last board meeting. Now this is adding enrollment to this report.
Good evening, trustees. Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Thank you for your time this evening. Tonight's update is on enrollment and staffing. First, talking about elementary school enrollment, I want to draw your eyes all the way to the very bottom. As you can see, our current enrollment for all of our elementary school sites is at 3,097 as of last Wednesday. Our projected enrollment for this level was 3,061. So we see an increase here of 36 above projected enrollment for elementary. The highest gains here are San Ramon, and the lowest who fell a little bit under projection was Linwood at -9. For middle school, we also see an increase. Our current enrollment as of last Wednesday was 1,704. Projected, we were 1,669, an increased over projected enrollment of 35. 28 of that coming from San Jose, Hamilton at 4, grade 6 through 8, and Sinaloa at 3. High school enrollment has also increased. Our current enrollment as of last Wednesday was 2,672. Our projected enrollment was 2,603, an increase of 69 over projected enrollment. 66 of those come from Novato High School, Marin Oaks, 11 increase. San Marin fell a little bit under projected enrollment at -8. We also have some of our scholars enrolled in Nova and Home Hospital, 50 total enrolled. We projected 45, so a difference increase there of 5 students. So there is our overall enrollment as of last Wednesday, total of all of our levels, 7,523. Our projection was 7,378, and that gives us an increase of projected enrollment of over 145. That number has changed since Wednesday. As of today, our count is still in the positive at 141. However, we do anticipate that there will be about maybe 20 students at the high school level that are still pending withdrawals. So we expect that number to go down just a little bit, but overall, we still are projecting an overall increase in our enrollment. This slide is comparative enrollment from where we were last year to where we are now. At day 5 last year, our enrollment was at 7,375. As of last Wednesday, we are at 7,523, so an increase of 148. Our projected enrollment a year ago was 7,388. We're now at 7,378, so we fell about 10 students in projected enrollment from last year to this year. We've hired a lot of great people here. Over 37 teachers have been hired over the course of the past few months, and there is the breakdown there by the number, subject area, or specialty. You've seen this slide. Our last presentation, we added Amanda Davis as our district administrator coordinator in teaching and learning, pending your board approval of our personnel action report this evening. This is a list of our certificated vacancies. This has also changed since we created this document. There are actually only 3 true vacancies that we are concerned with filling. One is a math teacher at Novato High School. Interviews are scheduled for tomorrow for that position. We have a PE teacher open at San Marin. Applications are being, at Hamilton. Applications are being accepted now. We have a recommendation for the elementary teacher over at Lou Sutton, and we've also filled the social cognition teacher already. The JROTC teacher at Novato High School has been posted with the Air Force, so we hope to have that position filled by them. We have still open a school psychologist position, and the digital photography teacher is filled pending final posting of the credential on CTC, or the California Teacher Credentialing. So our main focus is wrapping up math at PE and the JROTC teacher. I do have some additional information for you. We are always actively monitoring class sizes. Specifically at this time, we are monitoring class sizes over at Rancho and at Hamilton in particular grade levels. We will continue to monitor up to day 10, which is later this week, prior to making any adjustments we might need to make sure all of our classes are in compliance with our contract. The number of combo classes at our elementary schools currently align from where we were last year, so no significant change in the number of combo classes at the elementary school. 15.
15 classes where there's more than one grade level in the same one.
Correct, yes, K through 5. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, questions? Trustee Aguila, and then Trustee Cooper, and then Mac down the line.
So we've gone up a little bit with the enrollment, and so that's great news. I'm wondering about if you think, can you give me your opinion about why you think that is? Do you think Target helped?
I
Can you
think,
talk about that a little bit?
yeah, I think our marketing, just the great position that the district is in, I think all of that is a culmination of that increased enrollment. It would be great to actually survey all of the new families that are new to the district to see what actually made them enroll, but I think it is a combination of all the things that we have been doing, from simple marketing to targeted recruitment by some sites.
So it looks like with the Target, it kind of paid by itself by having this enrollment go up a little bit. So
Sure, if we
paid
see
for
the
it?
if we see the end product of getting actually the dollars for the increased enrollment, yes.
Okay,
I can see
and I
that.
feel good about voting for it. So, one more question. I know that the numbers are still, they're probably pretty much going to be the same, but maybe vary throughout different schools due to inter-district transfers. And do you project that the numbers will shift a lot, or we don't know, right?
I don't think they will shift a lot, but it depends what happens out there with our parents and our students.
Yeah.
But we will probably have better clarity after day 10 or after this week in regards to what movement will be
After
made.
day 10, because there's no limit. Yeah, okay. I think that's it for now.
Okay, Trustee Cooper.
Well, this is good news. Thank
It
you
is.
for bringing this.
Sure.
I have a question about, two questions. One is about Linwood. Enrollment's down overall, but could you go into the dual immersion side of things, if you will, and talk to that? How are we doing there? Are the classrooms full, or the overflow situation? Where are we at on that?
I don't have that exact data, Trustee Cooper. I'd have to pull that up for you.
Okay.
I could send that over to you.
That would be interesting to know.
Sure.
I think I already know the answer, but it would be
I
good
just
to
want to
know.
make sure that I speak accurately and give you the accurate data. I don't want to misspeak.
Okay, great.
Can you just put that in your Friday update?
Sure.
Thank you.
And then, and to my recollection, is it correct that that's going through second grade now? This is second grade? Okay. And then I'm interested by your comment about the high school enrollment. It looks like on your chart, the delta is we're up into 69 this year, but you expected that, you think maybe 20 you're going to pull out?
Yeah, at the high school level specifically, usually around this time, after a couple weeks of school, parents
lot.
start withdrawing their students, or the office staff might not have been in a position to withdraw students right away, and so usually when things settle down is when we get a better idea of what the actual count is
Okay.
there.
Okay. I think that was it. Thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Mack, you're good. Trustee Nell, and Trustee Millerick.
I appreciate the final numbers, but I'm wondering if it's possible to get by grade.
By grade level, sure, I could get that. I can also include that in my update to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for requesting that. Trustee Millerick?
Have any students been overflowed from one campus to another?
Not yet.
Good.
We anticipate that may happen, though, as we settle down in the next few days.
Okay, okay. So I'd be interested when you make those decisions, what the impact is to, and I assume your goal is to have that done by day 10, so it minimizes.
A little after, yes.
A little after, okay, okay, thanks.
Trustee Aguila?
Yeah. So I know the answer to this, but so it means that now, because enrollment's up, we don't have to ask the community for parcel tax?
I'm gonna let all of you decide that.
So that would be great.
Yes.
But anyway, so thank you for
Sure.
this. Actually, I wanted the real question was, do we have record? And I know Leslie Benjamin. I know we've been keeping record of exit surveys about why we're losing some of our students. And I know this is good news, so I hate to end it in a bad note, but. Just like that, I've asked before if we can keep a record.
She's doing it. Leslie's going to be doing it. You're rolling it out here soon.
Yeah, and
it's coming.
The opposite of like, how do they hear about us and how are they coming? So
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, I have one public comment, so we'll hear from that. Mariah Fisher?
Good evening. Thank you. I received the class size list from Jonathan last week and have been stewing over how to read it all. Remembering in my head this really nicely put together brochure about how we have a class ratio of 18:1. And wouldn't that be great? And so I've looked at all of the class sizes at all of the sites and done more math in the last 3 days than I've done in a really long time. And I have all of the averages for all of the sites, and they range from 20.5 to 27.28. So I'm trying to figure out where this 18:1 is coming from. Are we, maybe SDC is included, you know, with very small, low numbers. And so maybe that's helping the number 18 actually seem to make sense. Or the other thing I was thinking of is PE and music teachers. Maybe they're counted and they have 0, so that helps. I mean, I just can't figure out how we're able to say we have 18:1 when I can't find a single school site that has that. There are 6 classes at Olive that are under 18 and 4 at the charter school that are under 18. That's it. So, and unless you're talking SDC, which, you know, does definitely bring the average number down, but I don't think that should be worked into the formula, because to me that's not a part of what you're saying when you're saying 18:1. We all know that SDC is below that. So I'm just trying to figure that out. Even if I could get that answer, I could stop doing all this math in my head all the time. I would really appreciate it. 66 new students at Novato High. I understand that some might be leaving, but you know, when you give us a certain number of sections based on projected enrollment, and then we're not declining, we're, you know, above projections, those students have to sit somewhere. And last I talked to all the history teachers at Novato High, they're over 155. I, as the president of the teachers union, I am not going to support and endorse, you know, forcing teachers into larger classrooms just because we don't want to hire another teacher. So that Exhibit K waiver is, you know, I feel like we're banking on that, and that puts teachers in a really hard situation. So as we're looking, I'm really glad that we're not talking about declining enrollment, because we've been hearing about it for a long time, and I love these numbers, but that means we need to hire teachers because we have the students to fill the seats in their classrooms. We have unbalanced combos. Combos really should be an even number, or, you know, close to an even number of, you know, 4th and 5th grade, when you're putting, you know, 22 or 23 4th graders and 7 8th graders or 7 5th graders. That's not a balanced combo. That's not what's best for kids. And it worries me that we're going down that path to save money. I think that covers it, but I don't know who on staff can justify the 18:1 for me, but I would really love to see where the money, that number's coming from.
Okay. Thank you.
Mariah, if I could ask a clarifying question. I'm not sure what document you're talking about.
Oh, it's a one pager. I'll forward it to you,
Yeah.
but it's purple and white, and right in the middle of it, it says we have 18:1 class size.
Got it. So if you could forward it to me, that'd be great. I
Absolutely.
think it's the infographic that we use for a couple of different purposes, but I'd love to see it, and then I can get you how we got to that number.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll wrap this item up. Anything else from the board members? Oh, Trustee Nell.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that the superintendent asked about that ratio, because to my knowledge, we're not advertising anywhere. And so for someone to suggest that that's the case, we've got to get that clarified. So I'm not sure if we publish our average classroom ratio district-wide anywhere. I would recommend to people that would be a very difficult number to go by, and I don't think it would tell you very much, and it certainly wouldn't be anything It certainly isn't anything that I think we're publishing, so I would like to see this document as well, if you do get it, Superintendent, because we want to keep the information as true as possible. Also, there was a question about sections and going over in high school. I don't recall, but if we do ask teachers to take on more students, is there a compensation for that?
Yes, there is. It's outlined in the collective bargaining agreement.
So essentially, if we go beyond a certain number of students per section, we pay them more for the extra work that they do. All right, thank you.
All right, we'll wrap this item up. Thank you, Jonathan, for bringing it forward to the board. We do it every year at this time. Moving on to our next staff report is the heat plan, and I will turn over to Superintendent Koska to begin the presentation.
So, thank you. One thing that's come up around a number of conversations, in part brought forward by parents through their advocacy, is the temperature in classrooms as we go through what I attribute to global warming. As our climate's warming, we're seeing more days where it's warmer. Those days seem to last longer. It appears to be cooling down later in the evening, which doesn't give as much time for classrooms to cool down overnight. We're in a situation where we do not have equality at our schools around air conditioning. So some of our schools, most of our schools do have air conditioning, and some do not. And so I think parents have rightly brought forward a concern about how do we make sure that we're keeping our kids safe in the classrooms. Parents also brought forward some examples of other districts that have developed heat plans for their schools that don't have air conditioning. And so while we aren't complete with our heat plan, we brought forward the starter plan. I want to make sure that the community understands that whether we have a formalized board-approved heat plan or not, it doesn't mean that we can't make decisions required to make sure that we're keeping our kids safe as the weather dictates. So I want to talk a little bit about the plan that we're bringing forward to you. This is an information item. What we are saying essentially is that we're going to follow the plan that was generated by San Diego Unified that has been brought forward to us. And what they say is that when temperature is forecast to be 95 degrees or higher, with a heat index of 103 degrees on, let's say, for example, it's Tuesday, it's today, we get to 95 degrees and the heat index is 104. By noon today, we would make a recommendation that tomorrow would be a minimum day, so that we make sure that we get kids out of the schools before they get too hot at those schools that don't have air conditioning. We would have one place where we would look to get that information. That would be the National Weather Service's website. It's important that we have one data point that we're all looking at, so we're all seeing the same information. And so let's say now so it was Tuesday, it was 95 degrees, but the heat index was 104, so we called on Wednesday. We were going to do a minimum day at those schools that didn't have air conditioning. Then the next day, it's predicted again to be over that temperature. We would again do a minimum day, and we would do that until the temperature dropped below that point. So that is the idea of our plan right now. We will be drafting an administrative regulation that goes along with this plan that gives schools guidelines for what they are to do when temperatures get to those extreme levels. We will be bringing that forward when we can have it completed for you. And it would have things like recommendations around PE, recommendations around recess, steps that we can take to do our best to remediate the heat in classrooms that don't have air conditioning or learning spaces that don't have air conditioning. So more to come, but I know this is important to the community, and so I wanted to make sure that we brought it forward.
Trustee Mack?
Thank you. Appreciate it. I know we need to do this. I know it's really important that we address this as quickly as can, both in terms of the immediate term with the plan, but also in capital improvements through Measure G funding. Couple questions about the plan, though. So, yeah, what caught my attention is how we would apply it only to schools with no AC. So that kind of brings up a question to me. How do we then make up time loss, instruction time loss, so that those campuses can catch up to the campuses that did not get affected, did not get impacted?
Typically, we would not be in a situation where we were required to do that. We have, all of our schools have slightly different instructional minutes now. None of them are identical to one another. So we make sure that there's a variance that would allow for us to be able to be off by, you know, a minimum day, a couple of minimum days, and that wouldn't have a large effect on, we'd still be above the state minimum.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be a challenge.
Well,
If we had a year where we had 6
Extended.
minimum days, 8 minimum days, then we'd need to consider that differently.
Okay, that's my concern, I guess. So down the road, I hear you. And then, and I think I know the answer to this, but there are some campuses that are partially AC'd, Novato High being the clear example. It's all or nothing?
It would be
basically?
treated more like a non-air conditioned
Yeah,
school.
okay.
A lot of the spaces that's air conditioning there isn't necessarily the learning spaces.
Right, okay.
Any other board members? Trustee Miller, and then we'll go to public comment.
We have cards.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, oh, good. So maybe I'll just wait and.
It's up to you.
I think.
Just want to give the board a chance before we.
There's going to be a conversation about what, this is a short-term solution. We're going to have a conversation about a long-term solution, so I'm interested in that at some point.
Okay.
But thank you.
Great. All right. Sure. All right, we'll move to our public comment, and as I think most of you were here last time, some of you and heard me at the beginning of the meeting, you have 3 minutes. I'll call the first 3 speakers. Please come to the podium, and the timer is on there. It'll go off at the 3-minute mark. I had 2 people who filled out heat plan and AC. I'm putting you as one. So Julie Jacobson, I put your 2 cards together, so you're the first speaker. Dee Dee Shannon, you also filled out 2, one for heat plan and AC, and I put yours together as one. And then Susan Lehman is the 3rd speaker. All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Just closed my notes. Okay. So we have some great people here to speak and tell you some things from our teachers and our parents. I have a random collection of thoughts, sorry. One, I'm glad that you're adopting a heat plan. That's fantastic. I don't love that it doesn't say that it is an interim plan. I'm hoping that that will be rectified. I also want you to take into consideration that it is going to be a hardship for parents to have to pull their kids at minimum day. And I don't know that we can just assume that it won't be 6 to 8 days. Like that, just assuming that seems silly to me. I want to note that Cal OSHA is working on indoor heat standards that right now Lou Sutton would not meet. The temperatures in the classrooms are in the 80s right now. Somebody's going to hand around some pictures of thermometers from last week that show 86, 87 degrees. It's freezing in here right now. I wonder if turning the temperature up in this room would have a financial impact. Okay, so obviously I want to ask you to just fund the air conditioning for Lou Sutton. However, if that's not going to happen at this point, I would ask that you please add this to the deferred maintenance portion of the next spend of Measure G. I know that it's not a one-to-one upgrade. It's not changing something that's existing. It is an upgrade. However, it's an infrastructure item that has not been taken care of and therefore is maintenance that has not been handled and has been deferred. I would also like to note that if a school closure is a portion of this discussion, if you guys could just bring that to the forefront instead of it being an underlying factor in this discussion, that would be fantastic. And lastly, just randomly, my son was accepted into the GATE program, which was great. So he's at Olive this year. And it was really exciting. He's been kind of bored, so he's very excited for this change. And when he went to the new student orientation, he got home and I was like, wow, how was it? So excited. And he was like, Mom, it was so cool in that classroom. It was amazing. It was so great to be in there. And I just thought it was crazy that the one thing that he noted was that he felt comfortable in the classroom. Thank you.
This isn't from me. This is your third card? Yeah. Two's good. And I'll actually only speak once. So, yeah, I'm back again. And one of my first questions was, why are you not putting the air conditioning on the agenda? We've asked for it a couple of times. I don't know if does this officially count that it's now on the agenda? It's a question. So, when I wanted you to put on the agenda for the 4 schools in the Novato Unified School District. And I put emphasis on the word unified school district because all of our schools should be equal. Apparently they're not. So as a community member, and also as a grandmother, but as a community member who pays the Measure G tax, I'm old enough to opt out, but I didn't because I want to support the schools. But I take offense to the issue of inequity that continues to not be addressed. This is the 3rd time we've come before you. So again, I'll ask to have it be an agenda item if that's a possibility. One of my questions is who determined what schools received air conditioning this time and which ones did not? A lot of schools received it, but yet 4 were left off. And our climate isn't that different between Lou Sutton and Linwood. So I don't understand if it was because these schools are lower socioeconomic, so they don't have as much representation, ethnic imbalance, but many of the schools that did receive it this year are in that same state. The ones that have had it for a long time are not. They're in a different position. So July was the hottest month ever recorded in July. Global warming is happening. And it's just plain wrong if you don't put air conditioning in these schools with the heat that we've had with the global warming. I just don't see how you could justify it. And Measure G brought in a lot of money. So to not put it in all the schools makes no sense. Needs over wants should have been the first priority for this money. We have schools right now with disgusting bathrooms that overflow into teachers' classrooms, and I'd be happy to share that with you. Windows nailed shut. Last time I was here, somebody spoke about baseball fields with holes causing injury and dead animal carcasses, heaters that don't work, sinks and water fountains that don't work, and then we have our 4 schools that still have no air con. So why didn't this money go to fix the areas of need before building brand new state-of-the-art buildings? I don't understand that. As a citizen, I'm not happy with how this happened and how this money was managed. And so I understand. I watched the last board meeting on TV, and so I heard us talking about a parcel tax. I understand that monies for a parcel tax are used differently, but if the basic maintenance and care for our schools and our children isn't addressed, I think you're going to have a hard time passing a parcel tax. So I really just really ask you to go into your heart and ask why you would put air in one school and let a school, for instance, like Lou Sutton with little 5-year-old kids sit in 85-degree classrooms. And students at Novato High take finals in 88-degree classrooms. I know my time's up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. First time.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Susan Lehman. I teach at Novato High, and I've been teaching in the district since 2001, and my own 4 children went through our schools. So I know how much our schools offer and how hard all of us here work to provide our students a rigorous, engaging education as well as a healthy school environment. And when room temperatures rise well over 80 degrees, students simply can't be expected to function well. During the first full week of school this year, I could see sweat pooling on the face of many of my kids' faces, and the room actually got muggy, with their sweat. Last year, when the AP students took their exams, they did so in a very hot and stuffy gym that was understandably distracting for many of them. For whatever it's worth, I'm the type of teacher who's always tended to say to my high schoolers, we're fine, let's just get on with it. But that approach doesn't work anymore because it's hotter than it used to be in Novato. And additionally, in the past 2 years, we've dealt with poor air quality days. And I'm talking about the ones in which school was open, but we were advised to keep our windows and doors shut. This just isn't a plan when there's no circulating air in the classroom. Beginning mid-morning, I and all the other teachers in our wing had to open the doors, thereby going against the county public health director's advice. We have to be concerned about what that means for our kids' health. And 2 of the 4 schools presently without AC serve our youngest children. And Novato High serves 1,464 students, and I wish I had recorded the number at Marin Oaks, I didn't. But families put their trust in us. We need the AC. And until that AC is in place, we need a very clear, comprehensive, and fair heat plan that is unique to Novato and Novato's needs. We do have protective plans in place for evacuation and lockdown situations. In 2019, Novato students also need protection against days of excessive heat and poor air quality. Thanks.
The next 3 speakers are Christina Corsetti, Carrie Canuli, and Joni Leith. Whatever you guys, sure. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I was at the meeting a couple meetings ago and spoke. I grew up in Novato, attended Novato schools. I voted for Measure G and pay property taxes. After that meeting, I just laid in bed the next couple nights. I have 3 children, 2 of which attend Lucetton. I just laid in bed thinking, why? Why do my kids not get the same air quality, the same conditions, accommodations as most of the other kids in the district? I just couldn't understand the rationalization behind that. The one thing I have learned in talking to people about this is the correlation with the possible school closures. It's like the elephant in the room that maybe it sort of explains things, that Rancho and Lucetton are possibly on the chopping block is sort of what we've heard. If this is the case, then I guess it makes a little bit more sense why no funds have been used to upgrade the infrastructure at Lucetton. But if that is the case, I'd ask 3 things from the board. One, that this just be transparent so that we could, at least as parents, sleep better at night and try to, or we'd understand a little bit more about why this has happened. Number 2, to prioritize this decision because so much is on the line. And number 3, to earmark the funds so that, they aren't gone by the time a decision is made. Because my fear is that by the time there's a final decision, there won't be any money left for those upgrades, and this inequality will remain. So that's what I would ask. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robbie and I'm a 6th grader at Sinaloa. I just graduated from Lucetton last year, and
and I spent 5 years at Lou Sutton, and for the past few years it had been very hard to focus on my classwork when it's so hot in the classrooms without any air conditioning. My friends and I would sometimes feel sick, and my teacher tried their best to keep us cool, but it didn't really work. Now I have air conditionings in my classrooms at Sinaloa. It's much better there, and we can focus better on our assignments without worrying how hot it is in class. My little brother is still at Lou Sutton, and I don't think it's fair for some of the other schools to have air conditioning and some don't. Every school should be treated equally. Please help the kids and the teachers in a safe and productive school environment so we can all succeed.
Good evening. I'm Christina Corsetti. I have a daughter at Lou Sutton Elementary School. I'm also a teacher at Novato High School, and I've been there for the past 14 years. I appreciate NUSD's commitment to adopting a comprehensive heat plan based on San Diego's Unified Plan. I am offering feedback on two important components that I feel the board should consider as NUSD moves forward to complete the plan in more detail and with site-specific needs. My first point is that this plan does not address air quality. For the past 2 years, there has been unhealthy air quality due to wildfires in surrounding areas. When classroom doors and windows need to remain shut due to air quality or smoke, there is a significant increase in classroom temperatures, especially in classrooms and/or facilities with no AC. The NUSD heat plan currently states that it will utilize the National Weather Service's official website for temperature readings. What sources will be utilized to determine safe air quality and temperatures in classrooms that must remain closed due to unsafe air? My second point is that San Diego's heat plan is an interim plan. San Diego Unified School District has developed a plan to air condition all classrooms and other educational support spaces. In November 2015, the San Diego School Board further authorized air conditioning to be installed in all schools. This narrative is missing from NUSD's current heat plan. NUSD's plan has not been deemed as an interim plan, and there is no school board authorization that states that air conditioning will be installed in the remaining schools: Lou Sutton, Novato High, Rancho, and Marin Oaks. I hope this feedback will be addressed by the board as NUSD moves forward in this process to adopt a heat plan. Thank you.
Superintendent Koska.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge that we've been working closely with Marin County Health around a smoke plan and an air quality plan that we'll be bringing forward based on recommendations from Marin County Health. That work isn't completed. They have some draft documents that have come forward thus far. And then once those are completed, we'll roll those out. We were hoping to be able to do them at the same night, but unfortunately those documents just aren't ready yet. So that'll come and it'll be connected in with the heat plan.
So my name's Carrie, and I have a daughter at Lou Sutton, and I have something from a 5th grade teacher, Kate Manser. I'm going to speak for her, and this is what she wrote. As a Novato Unified School District teacher in my 10th year at Lou Sutton and mom of a Novato High School junior, I'm writing you tonight to let you know my frustration and concern with the lack of AC at either of these campuses. I feel Novato Unified School District has pushed aside the basic needs to pursue other more high-profile projects, and it is for the students and staff of Lou Sutton and Novato that are suffering. Unless you have been forced to work in an environment where the air is stifling hot and stagnant, I suppose it's hard to understand how AC can make such a significant difference in someone's ability to focus and ultimately learn. But unfortunately, along with many of my colleagues and hundreds of students throughout the NUSD, have had to figure out the best possible way to survive a sweltering classroom. Each year, without fail, I struggle to help my students and remain comfortable in a classroom that consistently hovers at 80 to 82 degrees after 1 p.m., most of fall and then again in spring. With the realities of global warming, I only imagine there are more hot days to come. So with nowhere else to turn, I decided this year to try and get cold air moving in my room on my own accord and to use donor's choice to secure a portable AC unit in my classroom. I'm very fortunate to have the project funded, but I am also desperate to get cool air in our classroom. That I did not calculate the cost to run the machine, as it is an ice-based air conditioner. Therefore, I will need to buy ice out of pocket every time in order for the machine to work. Therefore, truly the simplest and most appropriate solution to the problem is to make AC a priority. Doing so would align with the district's version of equality. Please do the right thing and let's give equitable, I can never say it right, learning environments for all students and all staff at the NUSD campuses. Thank you, Kate Manser. I just want to add something to how you said that we could do the half days. I send my kid to school to learn. I don't want to go home. Like, it's not my babysitter. I send her there to learn. So for me, it's like, so this kid at this other school gets to learn all day, but because of the heat, my kid has to go home. I just don't think it's very fair.
Hello. My name is Joni Leith, and I've been here before to speak on this issue. I've been a teacher in the district for 14 years, and I teach at Novato High School. I also have a first grader. I wanted to speak about some data, and so I made some spreadsheets to pass around. So I'm here tonight to share some data regarding the cool and clean air that some schools have been granted, while others have been left out. First of all, here are some numbers to show the staggering differences between the schools that have air conditioning and the ones who do not. Out of the 3 high schools in Novato, Marin Oaks has 75% socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and 18% of those are language learners. These students have been left out. Novato High has 40% socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and 8.4% of those are language learners. They have all been left out. San Marin High School has 28% socioeconomically disadvantaged, and only 5.5% of those are language learners. Those students all have access to cool and clean air. For the middle schools, San Jose Middle School has 46% socioeconomically disadvantaged, and 13.5% of those are language learners. They have not had air conditioning until now, while Sinaloa, with 28% socioeconomically disadvantaged, has. You have the elementary school numbers in front of you, but the pattern is clear. Lusutton has 58% socioeconomically disadvantaged students. 36.5% of those are language learners. Rancho has 31%, and 19% of those are language learners, and those students have all been left out. This is an equity issue. The equity imperative states that students of color, students living in poverty, students for whom English is a second language, and special needs students do not have equitable access to high quality, engaging, and relevant learning environments. We must address the needs of our traditionally marginalized students. That's a quote. I agree. We must address this issue. Thank you.
The next 3 speakers is Willie Lopez Diaz, Laura Roberts, and Camila Mulhall. Okay. Then Heather Smith.
All right. Good evening, board members. I am Willie Lopez. I'm a senior at Novato High, and at school I am part of lots of programs there, as in like leadership, AVID, and outside I'm in 10K, and I'm a first generation. And I feel as if students deserve the right to have ACs in class, because we don't have to rely on bringing our own air conditioners or fans to school, as I do, because I have to bring my own fan from home to school. And I know a good amount of other students that have to do the same thing that I do. And with the schedule change this year, my after lunch classes are very uncomfortable due to the room not having any air conditioner or airflow, which makes it really hot, uncomfortable, and smelly, which distracts me and my classmates from learning. During an event on this Friday, we had a situation that went down with one of our students at Nevada High. And she happened to faint from a heat stroke due to the fact that the gym was very hot. And we should consider this because this puts our students' lives at risk because, you know, they're having heat strokes. And so we have to like address that. How come a school across town has AC and ours doesn't? It's inequitable because we deserve the same classrooms that they do. And it's not an excuse to give one school AC and the other not. Most workplaces learn that if they have air conditioning in their spaces, they get more productivity. And sorry. How come the same doesn't apply to us? If the school system expects us to exceed in education, how can we if our buildings don't help us learn? And with a topic that we discussed before, with the ratio to teachers, in one of my classes, the ratio in our class is about roughly 38. And I know from what our teacher has told us that more students will be coming in there, and which that considers also another factor that contributes to the heat situation in our classroom. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Laura Roberts, and I've been a teacher in NUSD for over 20 years. I applaud the school district for taking on this equity initiative. This is something that I've seen that we've needed for many, many, many years. I focused my years in this district on the traditionally marginalized student. I've taught at Marin Oaks, Nova, and Nexus before I spent the last 12 years now at Novato High. At Novato High, I teach, among other things, English language development classes. So I'm well aware of who a traditionally marginalized student is. I understand also that equity does not mean that we give all students equal services. It's not that at all. Instead, equity means that at times we give the underserved students more time, more resources, more opportunities. So then why does Novato High and other schools full of traditionally marginalized students with a disproportionate amount of traditionally marginalized students not have decent learning conditions? Why do those students start their first semester in hot, uncomfortable classrooms for most of August, September, and at least part of October? Why is the superintendent's heat plan going to allow students in non-air conditioned schools to go home or have a minimum day when temperatures reach unsafe levels? I understand he's thinking of the students. However, isn't that the opposite of equity? Isn't that offering these underserved students less instructional minutes, less learning, less time with their instructors? This doesn't sound like equity at all.
Hi, it's me again. I actually was planning on speaking before because my whole point of talking to you earlier was to say thank you from Olive and Linwood parents, because I had a whole list of Facebook messages and text messages and people that I met in person that I've run into the community who have said various comments about what a difference it's made. And I'll just read you my favorite one, and then I'll move on. Since it's about the heat plan, I'll talk about the heat plan. The mom said it was a game changer. That was my favorite comment. So in all of this, that started with my sending an email out. I decided to take it further and write a resolution for the California State PTA so I could go to Sacramento and advocate for students and teachers and for funding for school districts for air conditioning. In this research, I had learned a lot of things. And a couple of them that I would like for you to keep in mind when you're approving this heat plan. And another thing I would like to point out is to make sure you consider each classroom temperature, not the outside temperature when you talk about a heat plan. Because when they did the study last year to determine which schools received the funds for the air conditioning, the ones that were the hotter schools, they were average classroom temperatures. And I really would ask that you pay attention to individual classrooms, because some classrooms got a lot hotter, specifically at all of the end units and the ones that were on one side of the campus versus the other, shading, sun setting, things like that. But some things that in my resolution, bottom line, we in the California State PTA approved this to say that classroom temperatures of starting at 80 degrees is where it starts to be unsafe. Some of the statistics that I found in research by Harvard University and others were that children with disabilities were at higher risk. 17% diabetics had a 17% higher risk of dying due to heat failure. I'm sure we have a couple of kids that fall into that category. Children under the age of 15 had the largest percentage of mortality rates. Significant test scores started to decline at 82 degrees. And then I also went to the Education Equity Forum with Tony Thurmond, and the biggest topic, as you guys know, is achievement gap. And in 2 of the studies I came across where they talked specifically about how temperatures in the classroom and heat there was a direct correlation between the achievement gap of Black and Hispanics as it relates to temperatures in the classroom. So just keep that in mind. Thanks.
One last speaker, Jennifer. And Jennifer, I can't pronounce it. Say it for me. Matakari. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Jennifer Matakari. I have a son in 4th grade at Lou Sutton, and I'm here to share some, as you know, we have a petition that has been signed by, I believe it's up to 470 parents and just supportive people for this scenario. And I'm just going to read some of their comments as they left with their signature. Why would NUSD have AC at all of its schools except for 3 out of 12? Please rectify this situation ASAP. Children have a right to a classroom that is conducive to learning. Loud fans whirring, kids sweating and wanting to lay down, combined with kids feeling completely depleted, is not conducive to learning. I urge the school district and board to move forward with implementing AC in all classrooms in Novato to ensure that all kids can learn in a comfortable and healthy environment. Everyone should be able to work and learn in comfort. I've been in those classrooms on warm days, and it's a much needed improvement. It's critical that our children are in a comfortable and safe environment. The importance of providing this for our children should be a #1 priority. During hot weather, being overheated interferes with learning and interferes with adults performing their jobs as well as they might. All our schools should have air conditioning. In an affluent community such as this one, the lack of air conditioning in some of our schools is unacceptable. Air conditioning is a health requirement for staff and students. Having AC would help students focus. Me being an incoming senior, I know how hard it is to focus in class when the room is uncomfortable for anyone to be in, let alone study in. I have 3 grandkids in these schools. I don't know how their brains can function when they do not have air conditioning. I want them to have every chance to learn. Please vote to put in air conditionings in our schools. Oh, okay. There's many more. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the public comment, and I will bring it back to the board and any additional comments regarding the heat plan that was presented. Trustee Millerick?
So just to follow on the comments I made before, we have a plan that it's designed to deal with the circumstances this year and next year in the time window before we can put together a construction plan to actually address the problem. You can't bring air conditioning in tomorrow afternoon if you wanted to. And part of that plan would be where's the funding. And maybe, Yancy, you remember the cost per elementary school for air conditioning? Was it million?
Elementary schools have run about 1.5 million. The
So-
budget for the middle schools is about a little under 2.5.
Okay, so for guessing numbers, without a plan to finance and do construction, we got to have a solution, interim solution. And so I'd like to make sure we think about that first and then go about the business of having the conversation about scheduling
Okay.
the financing and the actual construction. And that's, I guess I'm interested in some advice as to when that could occur.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do you want to respond, or you want me to get some more comment?
I can, Ross, can you repeat the last part of the question?
I got it. So two issues. One, I appreciate we have an interim plan, and we need an interim plan. There is no choice. We have to solve this problem starting right now today, not some other time. And then so thank you for that, and I would be prepared to adopt the plan before us unless somebody's got some better ideas. And then how do we begin the conversation of finding the funds and setting up a construction program that would move us forward for the 4 schools. There's 4 schools by this list, Marin Oaks, Novato High, Rancho, and Lou Sutton, that are currently aren't served with air conditioning. And so I'd like some data, because it'd be nice to snap my fingers, but we just talked about a lot of money.
Right,
And and definitely timeline.
Yeah, so the estimate for air conditioning in the 4 schools is about $10 million, give or take. It's all subject to bids. We're talking about projects that are multiple years out, so it's hard to predict what construction costs will be in multiple years, but that's the best estimate that we can give. So from a funding perspective, you always have the opportunity to use general fund money for anything. More than likely, we're talking about Measure G money, if that would be the funding source that would be available should you choose to allocate it towards this project. As you guys are all aware, the first 2 distributions of bond funds have been expended on current projects that would be very costly for us to get out of. The summer of 21 or the summer of 22 would most likely be the earliest we're able to tap into any future Measure G dollars for future projects. It could be within your authority to direct staff to use those funds for these purposes. The soonest we get Measure G allocations and sufficient enough amounts to be able to fund this project would be summer of 21 or summer of 22, depending upon the complex rules around bond issuances. Yancy, did I hit that okay? Okay.
So, but one additional comment, and then I'll yield. I am not in favor of spending money for some project without looking at our total project plan for how we're going to invest $100 million that we still have from the citizens of Novato. So while I think we could do a plan that maybe hits these dates, I would be in favor of a comprehensive strategy that this district adopts that talks about all the issues we've talked about, and not just whoever walks in the door last gets the money first. So maybe these are the dates we can hit, but I think that means this board's got to decide we need to get to the comprehensive planning exercise sooner than not later. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Mack, and then Cooper and Aguila.
Yeah, and I'm just going to touch on that, but then get to my question. The comprehensive plan that we're talking about doing, we're starting that. Actually, can you remind me the timing of that? Is it this fall? At least the prioritization plan.
Yes, the prioritization of the Phase 2 of Measure G funding will begin. It's actually started. The board gave direction to staff to finalize some numbers around deferred maintenance needs in the district prior to allocating those additional funds by level. That will be done sometime in October, November. And after that, the funding will go to individual implementation committees at the different levels. And so that plan was approved, I believe, on June 4th. And then at our last meeting, we made a few adjustments to the timing because of the board's direction around deferred maintenance informational needs.
And that's a process whereby if we wanted to, we could quote unquote earmark funds for summer of 2022 to do something like the $10 million for AC as an example.
That would be the summer of 21 or 22, depending on when we can issue that Series C issuance of the bond, would be the first time that we could use Measure G bonds.
To do the projects, but the prioritization process is where we could actually say, boom, this much is going to that and not being touched.
Absolutely.
If we wanted to, putting our feet to the fire. Okay, but the plan, so getting back to the HEAP plan, my real question, I heard some useful comments tonight. One, I do think, and I think you're probably already down this path, but I just want to make sure it's out there. The HEAP plan probably needs to be, not probably, does need to be merged with the air quality plan so that when both hit, which they will, we know what to do. Secondly, I do see there's some value in our temperature readings varying tremendously, even on a single campus, and wondering, and I'm crafting an email right now, is it financially feasible for us to monitor classroom temperatures remotely to understand where we got problems and be in front of that? And it might just be that instead of shutting down a whole campus, we just redistribute or something, that it's not as drastic, perhaps. But I don't know if that's financially feasible. I have no idea how much that costs, much less how do we maintain it. Just so I'd like to look at that.
Trustee Cooper?
So, two questions. Are we doing this, and I think you touched on this, are we doing this in conjunction with the county? I know we're kind of looking at the San Diego model. Is anyone out in front of us in Marin County?
No other.
In terms of the HEAP plan?
There's no other district that I'm aware of in Marin County that has a HEAP plan. I want to say that there's really a third level of complexity around the plans, because so you got the heat plan, you got the smoke plan, and then you got to figure out what we do with the PG&E power shutoffs, because those all interrelate. Because even if we have schools that have air conditioning and PG&E shuts off our power, that adds another level of complexity. So this is an evolving area. You know, like I said, we're the only district I know of in Marin County that's having this conversation. We're probably the warmer district in this county, so I want to call that out. But it is layered with the complexity of those other two plans that we have to consider: the PG&E power shutoff plan and the smoke air quality plans.
You are very right. If they do shut off the power, we don't have much choice.
Right.
Even if we have air conditioning.
Yeah.
My last question is, Heather Smith mentioned she had taken a trip or talked to someone, legislators up in Sacramento, and through the PTA, I think, and she mentioned some kind of, was there some funding available? Or Yancey, maybe you could, is that something the state is looking at, or that would be great if they were?
We don't have any information that they're looking at that from a funding standpoint at this time. I think it's being brought up more at the beginning as an educational issue and an issue to look at. But that doesn't mean, we see things move all the time and change. But I have not seen any potential legislation that would have the money attached to it. If you added that all schools in California were to add air conditioning,
Be a fair chunk of
you're
change.
talking in the billions and billions and billions of dollars across the state. So that would take a significant piece of funding.
That'll wipe out the governor's rainy day fund, that's
There-
all. But our kids will be in good shape. Thank you.
Yeah, I can say that I do appreciate Heather's ongoing advocacy.
Yeah.
She's working hard on this issue. She's beating the bushes. She's working with legislators. She's working with statewide PTA. So she's, I really appreciate the effort she's putting in. Yeah.
Trustee Gila?
Yeah, I have a question, but maybe you can just email us the answer or whatever, just looking at the time. But my question basically is, could you remind me, with Measure G language, the process of, I thought we asked all the schools what they needed. And I just can't believe that that we have this new information that, or maybe I missed it. But so could you let us know if we do decide to move forward with this AC? What would be the process of changing the language for Measure G? Would it be just something that's possible, or if you could just let us know later. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Trustee Millerick?
This is a similar question to Trustee Gies. We went through an allocation process, and we had language for the bond measure that was written pretty generally, but there's words there we have to follow. And we had a bond committee that went through and looked at the needs across the entire district, and I know that covered the first half of the bond, basically, for $100 million. And I thought we did some planning for the second half, or at least sketching out. And the question is, was Novato High's air conditioning in that second phase? Is it already on the list of to-dos? And I don't remember, and I actually think probably we need to do this exercise the board's talking about and redo the whole second half anyway. So even if it's there, it would just, I would suggest we erase and start again to reprioritize new things we've learned. But was it there or not? Do you remember?
Yeah, so the first $105 million was prioritized by the Bond Implementation Committee, which was that 50-member committee that started the bond in late 2016, early 2017, to prioritize the first half of the bond projects. The projects that would be quote-unquote left in phase 2 of that would be, in my opinion, all of the projects that were included in the approved facilities master plan that made up the original $222 million facilities master plan, which was our roadmap that we went to the community. Now, we knew that it could change a little bit, it could, move, but that was the roadmap we were using. Novato High's did include air conditioning in their project lists. Now, I think it needs to be clear that when we looked at the first phase of projects, that first $100 million of projects, due to construction increases and other unforeseen things like the fires up in Santa Rosa, that has cost more than that $100 million. So the remaining money for the second half of those projects will not complete all of the projects that are in the facilities master plan for the 222. But of the 4 remaining sites that do not have air conditioning, Novato High School was included in the facilities master plan for air conditioning. Lou Sutton, Rancho, and Hill Education Center were not included for air conditioning through the facilities master planning process that was approved by the board in the summer of 2016. Yes, that's in late October or November that we will be discussing will be the allocation of those remaining $115 million of funds.
Save it for deferred maintenance or not even request the cap in the bonds to, buy a new paint job for building everything.
Correct.
The entire pile. Okay. Thank you. That history, memory.
All right, so I think we got some answers a little bit on regarding the AC and the money and the cost of that. Regards to the heat plan, I will get some more information. We'll come back to the board. And I think we're in agreement that the air quality needs to be a part of that too, and we're working on all of those to put those together. So moving forward, I think we wait and see that as Yancey said, the October, November, the prioritization of items and stuff like that. I think we've got to wait and see how that all happens. All right, are we good to move forward with the board? More clarity?
Maybe one more.
Well, they need to come up to the. I think you've already spoken, and we've already moved beyond.
I just want to know how, if the public can be invited to the October, November meeting. Is it public or is it?
Yeah, yeah, it'll be right here.
That could be effective tomorrow.
It doesn't take board approval to implement.
Tomorrow it's 105 degrees.
Yeah.
That would be day
Yeah.
one. So then we could call a minimum day for day two.
All right, thank you. We'll move on.
I do.
I was like, is something wrong? with the-
How are you?
Okay.
You're exhausted. Here, I got it.
All right, are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
All right, thank you, trustees. Last year in 2018-19, the Elementary School Size Committee met and made recommendations about potentially closing a campus, but they also made some additional recommendations of items for the school district to look into doing. One of them was looking into marketing ideas for the school district. One of them was looking at potentially looking at the parcel tax extension, and another related to looking at moving the district office to the Hill Education Center and leasing out the district office. So there are two things that the board asked to come back regarding those two that one recommendation. The first is the usage of Hill Education Center, because the assumption of that committee was that the Hill Education Center might be underutilized. And the second was to look at the commercial viability of leasing out the district office. So the district has engaged, staff has engaged professional real estate consultant to review the viability of leasing this office. But tonight we're going to be looking at what is going on over at the Hill Education Center, and specifically how are the classrooms being used, and if there seems to be additional space available at Hill. The first and largest user of Hill Education Center is Marin Oaks. That's in blue on your map over here. It's about a quarter of the campus. It serves 80 It serves 80 students in the district's continuation school. And like I noted, it occupies approximately 1/4 of the Hill campus. Nova Independent Study is in green on the schedule and occupies 4 classrooms right now. It educates approximately 50 to 60 students a year and is the district's independent study program. In pink is the Novato Adult School, and this has been increasing over the past several years because of the increased funding opportunities by the state to adult education. We offer programs in high school diploma, high school equivalency classes in both English and Spanish, as well as English as a special language. The adult education program occupies 5 classrooms in pink at the Hill Education Center. My favorite, and present company excluded, is the Marin County Office of Education Compass Academy program. It is my personal favorite because it brings in $100,000 in leasing income a year. That is the dark or the bright purple color in the back. The other thing that I very much appreciate about that program is it offers a very needed alternative setting for some of our students with additional needs. And those are able to be provided. You heard some parents earlier today. Those services are being able to be provided in Novato centrally and with very low bus ride for those students. One thing that has changed was last year when fiscal issues required us to make reductions. We made reductions in our IT support staff, which required a change in model on how we provide those services. Instead of site-based text, we went to a district-wide model. If you go to a district-wide model, you need a location for those staff to work out of. And so all site technicians are now housed at least part-time over at Hill and have individual office hours at each site. The IT department currently occupies 4, or it's really 3.5 classrooms at the Hill Education Center, and that's just over 10 employees over there in the technology department. Also, we have several other programs over there. The first is our very wonderful foundation, School Fuel, is in one of the classrooms. The County of Marin offers mental health counseling to some of our students in a confidential classroom at that. The district also has one classroom for district records storage there, as well as using some of the space, some of the office type space for SARB hearings that the district does throughout the year. As you can see, this campus is widely utilized, and especially with the increase in funding to adult education by the state, as well as the change in model for our IT, it would take a lot of, all of these services would need to be moved to another campus, or most of these services would be required to move to another campus if we were to move the district office over there. The other thing that we will note when we bring the commercial viability of leasing this office is the potential costs of retrofitting the Hill Education Center into office space. Currently, it's wonderful classroom space, but it would take some significant construction work and costs to do those retrofits to have district office staff there. With that, I open it up to questions.
Trustee Gila, and then Trustee Gasson.
Yeah. I have great memories with Hill, and we used to meet for the Blue Ribbon Coalition there. And now that they're not there, I remember going back, and that room was already utilized soon after we left. So Can you talk a little bit, and I'm sorry, I had to step out and I missed your first part, so I don't know if you talked about parking. Did you?
I did not talk about
Could you
parking.
talk about, I know, if you can just compare parking between there and here, and I know it's
Parking, this facility actually has office space, is actually underparked, and that'll likely come out in the viability of leasing this office. But there is less parking at Hill than there is at this facility
That's what I
right
thought.
now.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Yassin, then Trustee Mack.
Thanks so much for doing this. I think one of the things that's been most interesting for me in my new role here is learning about all the programs and stuff that were here, because I really had no idea. So this has been great, and I still need to get out there and take a tour, but I appreciate this information. One other thing I was curious about, just you had mentioned the revenue from one source. They have a nice gym there, so is that one of the things?
The gym is owned by the city of Novato, the school district.
No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't. The multi-purpose room.
With a stage.
Yeah.
Multi-purpose room, yeah.
So that is rentable, right?
That is rentable space in the
Okay.
district, and I believe it's on the Facilitron facility rental website that you can go to look at
Great.
that.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Trustee Mack. Trustee Nell.
Brings back flashbacks of my days in the 70s on the Hill campus. Anyway, so 80 Marin Oaks students. If we were to add in the Nova students and the, just in terms of number of students, how many students are on the campus? 120?
No, there's going to be over 150 K-12 students.
Okay.
But we also have over 100 students in our adult education programs.
Right.
And so they're over 100 students. I'm sure you'll be getting a report on.
Right. I should have pulled up the thing from the prior thing. I apologize.
So, yes. And then in the Compass program, you have another 20 to 30 students back in that area. So on any given time, you're talking to 200-300 students at a given time. The Nova students, to be clear, the Nova students and the adult ed students, their timing aren't as regular as the Marin Oaks students.
Right.
But there are 300 plus students receiving
Right.
educational services here.
And if I was to play devil's advocate, trying to say, well, what if we were to split this apart and put them in different places? Would I be correct to say, though, that certain groups have to stay together, such as Marin Oaks would probably need to stay with Nova? Anything like that?
I think for operational reasons, that's likely the case. We have a principal that is over those programs, and so you could have them over several sites. Some people do that, but I don't think that's usually the first choice operationally, to have a principal for an independent study and a continuation school that aren't available at any given time.
In the MCOE rented space, am I correct to say that they particularly targeted that space for the continuity, the size, that they could all be together like that?
Placement that would need to happen. I think the key is always the money, and is there truly a need or an ability to rent this space out, and if there is potentially a market, how much would that be? And would that justify the movement? And so that hopefully will be coming on September 17th. We've got them working on that right now. So we were hoping to, and I apologize, we were hoping to have both of these together because they kind of fit together.
Sure.
But that review was not completed, and I didn't want to bring you a partial review of the viability of that. So that's been pushed to the 17th. So we'll have additional information on the cost benefits, because first we have to look at, could we lease this building out? If so, for how much? And if that would justify all the other displacement and the potential loss of revenue and changes in educational services that we have for our students in the district.
Okay, great analysis, thanks.
All right, we'll move forward. Thank you for bringing this forward. It provides some clarity and transparency to the community on this. The site is definitely being used to its capacity, so thank you.
Yeah.
All right, the next staff report is Yancey as well, it's our solar power purchase agreement and the first year of the performance assessment. And just for the board, we're past 10 o'clock. We have this item and 1, 2, 3 more to go, right?
All right. If I make a technical misstatement on this, I'm going to ask Trustee Cooper to correct me. But thank you. I appreciate it. In 2016-17, the district approved a power purchase agreement with Solar City, which is now Tesla, for installing solar photovoltaic systems at 10 of our schools. So we have them at all sites, but Lou Sutton, San Ramon, and Hill Education Center are the 3 sites that do not currently have photovoltaic
Interesting, those are the
systems.
schools that don't have air conditioning.
2 of them, San Ramon.
Well,
They didn't have good locations that really worked out, penciled out financially. So with those 10, we moved forward, and we've now have over a year of data for those, and so I wanted to bring back that information to the school district. The couple of the items I'll be hitting on are the energy production versus expected production, which is obviously a very important number. The first year financial performance of the project. So basically, you said we were going to save a lot of money, Yancey. Did we save a lot of money? The performance guarantee tracking. I'll get into what guarantees we have of the system performance and how we're tracking that, and then just go into any potential operational issues and things that are on the horizon in the solar industry. So all sites reached their commercial operation by the end of 2017. And so this first year encompasses 1 year at each site. So it's individual by site. But by the end of 2018, this data set was complete and up for review. And so now it's coming to you in 2019. Just to kind of go over, we had 10 sites. Expected production in year 1 was 2.1 million kilowatt hours. Our annual system degradation is projected at 0.5%. So we're saying that these panels will get 0.5% less efficient each year over the 20-year rate, which or 20-year term, which is the term. We pay anywhere from 12 to 18 cents a kilowatt hour, which is below current PG&E rates. And one of the most important in all PPA contracts is what is your annual escalation. So we don't have any annual escalation for the 20-year period. So in some ways, our savings will increase if PG&E rates will increase. And given everything going on with PG&E, I would expect that there likely are some PG&E rate increases. So in terms of actual production, 2.1 million kilowatt hours. We offset about 88% of our energy. This is how we calculate savings. This isn't, we don't own the systems. We're actually paying Tesla Solar City for their production at a rate significantly below PG&E rates. So what our utility savings are what usage would we have been paying to PG&E for what we was purchased from Tesla, and that's $550,000 in year 1. We paid $311,000 in PPA savings, so a net savings to the district of almost $250,000 in the first year. So if you look at this, we paid about $16,000 to PG&E, to the utility, $311,000 to Tesla, and the $238,000 is the savings that we would have been paying to PG&E had we not gotten into the power purchase agreement. We offset 88% of our consumption. So from an environmental standpoint, a very good job of offsetting our consumption. So only 12% of our energy was coming off of the grid. Here's where we get into where the rubber meets the road. It's the actual performance versus expected performance. So overall, as a system, we were at 97% in the first year of expected performance. And so those expected performance are just projected, but we do have a guarantee on that production that I'll get into in a minute. All of our sites were at least 90% of expected production, and a couple of our sites were over 100%, including Hamilton and Novato High School. This graph shows all the way up into March of 2019. And so as you can see there, a lot of the months are kind of right at, some are a little bit below, some are a little bit above, but it tracks into the 97% in the first year. Just some kind of convenient numbers to look at our carbon offset. Annually, the carbon offset to our 10 systems is the equivalent of pulling 98 cars off of the road for a year, or the electricity consumed by 81 homes for a year. All right, now to get down to the money portion. Our performance guarantee is at 100% of the projected amount. We noted that we project that the panels will decrease in efficiency by about 0.5% a year, and we do a performance guarantee true up after 5 years. So I noted we were at 97% for the first year. That's a 3% under the performance guarantee of 100%. But Tesla has an additional 4 years to make that back, or they need to, they make us whole for the performance at 100%. That guarantee shortfall rate varies by site because we have different rates by site based on the construction cost of the individual site units. Right now, just noting, we don't have a performance guarantee true up now. It will be in another 3.5 years. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. But the performance guarantee is assumed by the whoever would buy the revenue stream. So no matter what, no matter who, if Tesla is in business or out of business, they will sell that revenue stream, and we are made whole by the owners of that, which is usually, large institutional investors and insurance companies. So just some, and this is an area that Trustee Cooper probably could do even better than I can on this. But there are some changing PG&E tariff climate information that is making it a little less profitable, especially for schools, to move into this area. They're grandfathering most clients for different periods of time, but over the next 5 to 10 years, we're seeing a flattening of some of the differences in rates when you go peak to off-peak. You've got some other differences that they're moving, but the general point I want to make here is that some of the assumptions were made based on current policy, which is all we can do. But some of those policies over the next few years might cut into some of our savings a little bit. We still will see significant savings on this program, and with no upfront cost to us on the program. It's in a way it's all positive. But I did want to let the board know as we look at those other sites that we might want to relook at some of the climate, and the ability for us to get into these contracts moving forward is going to be a little bit more difficult. With that, I'm happy to open it up to questions at this time.
Josie Cooper. Then trustee
Nice
Ward.
job, and thank you for bringing this forward, because, you know, number one, we're paying Sage to do these reports.
Yep.
And number two, it's nice to know that we did made the right decision at when we decided to put solar in.
Absolutely.
$38,000, a lot of money, every year,
Yeah.
less half of 1%.
Yep.
For 20 years, pretty
Yeah.
good.
For no upfront investment, yeah.
Got kids have got shade for their cars, and we're all happy. With respect to the increase from the PG&E, that's going to all have to be approved by the CPUC.
It will, yes.
And that, you know, I think there's a lot of sentiment towards just keeping this group that we're a part of grandfathered in. So that's what I
that is our obviously our hope, and you know we've got people out there pushing lobbying for that.
And I also would say that that number's going to get even bigger because PG&E's increases the delta between what we pay a fixed amount and what PG&E will be ultimately charging in 10 years, 15, 20 years. That delta will increase, so
yeah,
it's going to be looking better and better. So
yeah, we
thank
still
you for
expect
this.
increases to our savings year over year, even in a changing. The one other thing I would like to note is one of the points of that was we will be looking at our rate structure of how we choose. We're under the A6 rate structure.
Yeah.
We'll continue to make sure that that is the most advantageous for the school district as we move forward.
Good. How long, one more question, thank you. How long do we have this agreement with Sage? Are we in it for 5 years?
No.
They'll be monitoring it?
No. So we had, and I'd have to go back and confirm, I
can't
believe we
remember.
had the first 2 years of monitoring and review. And if we want to move that to a 5th year, there would be a cost to that.
Whatever that cost is,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so we're in our first year?
We're in our second
We're
year.
in our- now we're in our
Now we're in our second year. Yep.
Okay.
Trustee Miller?
As we move away from using natural gas to heat and electricity, and no electricity for air conditioning, because some schools don't have air conditioning, to an environment where we're using heat pumps that are electricity driven, not natural gas driven. So you generate heat with a heat pump from electricity, and you generate cooling by the same heat pump with electricity. That means our energy demands for air conditioning will be covered partly by the electricity generated on these panels. Or if it had been a natural gas furnace, it wouldn't have. Have we thought about how the interaction between the choice to go to air conditioning heat pumps is impacted by our cost of fuel from these fuel cells?
Yeah, we have looked at that. Some of it is being offset by a lot of the lighting work that we're doing. So we're trying to move to much more efficient LED lighting, and so that's offsetting some of our costs. And so we are looking at the differences in the electrical load. We mostly look at that, though, when we're looking to do any kind of major work on a campus. That's when we're doing a significant look at positives and negatives. But we're always looking at ways to potentially reduce that demand.
So Mike Woolard said to me, and I think it was him in passing, that the heat pumps that give you air conditioning heat have the same fuel costs as the heaters alone did because it's more efficient. And I'm wondering if that's a true case or.
That is when we reviewed the costs. It's not exactly zero, but I would say it's materially a zero difference because the units that they're replacing are 10, 15, 20 years old, and the efficiency has gotten significantly better in that 15 to 20 year
And
period.
quieter.
And quieter.
And so lots of opportunities, including the shade, so we can park our cars underneath the shade structures.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. That's, I think it's a real success story. What happens at 20 years? Do they revert to us?
We have
an
a
option to buy 6 years and 10 years, I think.
I think it's 7
or something.
10, and then 20. There's
Milestone
almost
dates.
a almost zero cost
Cost goes
buyout
down
at the.
in that fashion.
So there may be savings beyond that life If they still have valuable life, you buy them and run them
Probably
for another 10 years like a used car.
10 more years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so we'll do an analysis when each of those option comes up of whether it makes sense for the district to somehow finance and purchase those photovoltaic systems and operate them, or if it just makes more sense to continue to be receiving that savings every year with no upfront costs.
Okay, thanks. Nice work.
Okay, we're going to move on. I don't see any other hands raised, comments. Thank you.
Tom, thanks for all the help in this area.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, moving into our discussion action items. This is the response to the grand jury report regarding career technical education in Marin County.
So I'm going to stand here and look pretty and then call somebody up here who will stand here and
Look prettier?
look. I'm not going to say that because that could be inappropriate. At this point,
Don't
I
say
will
that.
just ask Miss Jen Larson to step forward. And while she's walking forward, I want to say that Jen Larson spent her first weekend in her doctoral program as she's working towards earning her doctorate. So congratulations, Jen.
Thank you. Very excited. Now Brandman. Yeah, very excited. Okay, so we're here tonight just to go over the recommendations that we've provided in response to the grand jury report. As you have in front of you, there were 3 recommendations that were provided to us. And you'll notice that in all 3, we determined, I shouldn't say that. The first 2, we determined that the recommendation required further analysis. While we do agree that the recommendation is a great one, what we need to do is determine where is the best place to implement these suggestions. The real theme in the recommendations was broadening the audience of what we are already providing to include parents, guardians, and community members. And that's something that we know is on our radar as an organization to begin with. So the first one is to implement a career night that includes all of the course offerings, both CTE and not. We certainly have that happening for the students, but how do we put that into play in the evenings for parents? And I think that's a very reasonable request and something we can do in the next year. The second is to make sure that parents are aware of the potential income and security that comes along with some of the pathways that we offer in the schools. And so what do our CTE pathways actually get the students prepared to do. And while we do this in the college and career readiness courses, it's an entire unit in that course. We don't do it with families outside of the course. And so we're looking at ways that we can extend that to include the families in that research. So each student does look at a variety of both college and career pathways, and they look at the earning potential. They look at how their life would look. They do everything from family, housing, based on the income of one of those. They choose one of their own. They choose one in a STEM field. They choose one in I want to say it's a biotech field, but there's some specifics that they do units around in the classroom. And then the third recommendation was about the high school counselors, and we already have that scheduled. Our high school counselors are incredibly aware of what CT programs we have. The language in this recommendation that I really wanted us to target was highly trained or an in-depth training. And I do feel like we could better support our students if we provided that training more directly. So we actually have invited Sita Williams, who is our school to career liaison and works throughout Marin County, to come to our counselor collaborative this year and do a training specific to what are the pathways we offer, what are the pathways in the larger Marin County community that our students can also be a part of, and we do have some. And what are the community organizations that are supporting our students through job shadows, internships, so on and so forth.
Okay. Trustee Gila and then Trustee Gasson.
I'd like to put in motion that we approve the recommended approval of NUSD's response to the Marin County Grand Jury Report, the status of career technical education in Marin County.
Okay, so I have a first Yeah, we have a question.
We need a second.
You want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay.
And then you can have your.
Trustee Nell seconds that, and then we'll entertain questions. Trustee Gasson?
I don't know if it's so much questions, more of a comment. And I accept the response, but what it triggered for me, because I've got a daughter who's already thinking about what am I going to do when I get to, I want to do MSA or do I want to do something. And I was thinking when I was reading this, I think it's great to let parents know more, but even, why at 9th? Why not at 8th grade?
Yeah.
And so that also then triggered to look on, because I thought, well, I don't even know. Like, as a parent, I'm trying to, not that there's anything wrong with some of the choices she's making, but I'm sort of like, well, what kind of things are there offered? And I went to the websites and for the schools, and there really wasn't. San Marin High School had a little bit more information about the programs, but I thought extending that's even just a great place to start, because as a parent, I may not be able to go to something, or, like right now I'm already thinking, I think it's way too early, but she's just, on this roll, and I would love to see, okay, what could she do at Novato High? What could she do at San Marin? But
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I completely agree. The first of the two, which is the parent night, we are implementing during the middle school years. Right now it's in 8th grade, but we have had recommendations to do it sooner. And we're also piloting right now a liaison between the middle and high schools to support students in that bridging into our special programs. We're starting with Hamilton. And so we have a full-time 10,000 Degrees partner who is now on that campus, and their sole purpose is to ensure that our students in 8th grade and their families are aware of the programs in the high schools, and they're walking beside them to make sure they have all the materials, applications, and deadlines they need. We're hoping to see a great deal of success with that so that we could expand it next year to the other 2 middle schools.
Okay, very cool. And just going along with the whole previous discussion about our enrollment doing better, I think that this is another avenue. If you had, just overall the school's individual website pages are really limited in information, and if we had some of this stuff where someone can go, hey, this is pretty cool, I would like to send my child here because they've got this great outline of what we're going to do. I know that that's beyond what this was in response to, but it just triggered these thoughts that we should even go beyond what is being requested. So.
Okay. Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Yeah. Trustee Millerick.
There's a significant career tech education program that runs off of the Indian Valley campus.
Mm-hmm.
Beth Pratt leads that program. Anna Pilliton's involved at some level. I assume you both know both of those women. They've been in the community for a long time. This response is fine, but I would like to see us better connect to the program that's offered. It goes everything from machine shop to auto repair, and basically every auto dealership in Marin County and in Solano County and Sonoma County turns to the program that's being run over at College of Marin IVC for the top flight mechanics that come out of that program. So that instructor used to teach at San Marin High School before he got stolen.
Yes.
So I would like us to reach out, and I'll approve this. It's a great response to the immediate question, but I think the grand jury missed the whole point of a career tech being a continuum from end of middle school to two-year community college. And I thought your response is fine. I just thought they were not paying attention to the market.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Any further comments, questions? All right. We have a motion of Trustee Aguila made the first, Trustee Nell made the second. All those in favor to approve our response to the grand jury? 7-0. Thank you, Jen. Yes, you are. And our next item is resolution number 9. This is Latino Hispanic Heritage Month.
With me. All right. Thank you for having me up a second time. I'm here requesting the board's approval of Resolution 9, the 2019-2020 Latino Hispanic Heritage Months. And in front of you, you have the proclamation for Resolution 9. And I'll read that to the public. Whereas Nevada Unified School Districts support the values, diversity, and inclusion in education for pre-K to 12 public schools, and whereas during National Latino Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th, Nevada Unified School District recognizes the contributions made and the important presence of Latino and Hispanic Americans to the United States and celebrate their heritage and culture. And whereas Latino Hispanics have had a profound and positive influence on our country through their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service, they have enhanced and shaped our national character with centuries-old tradition that reflect the multi-ethnic and multicultural customs of their community. And whereas Latino Hispanic Heritage Month begins each year on September 15th, the anniversary of the independence of the 8 Latin American countries, Mexico, Chile, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Belize, all celebrate their Independence Days during this period. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Nevada Unified School District Board of Trustees does hereby fully support September 15th to October 15th, 2019 as Latino Hispanic Heritage Month and encourage participation in the special annual tribute by learning and celebrating the generations of Latino Hispanic Americans who have positively influenced and enriched our nation and society.
Right? Trustee Aguilar?
Yeah.
You said you had a question?
Okay, every year this keeps getting better and better. And I almost had tears in my eyes because this, as I read this, it just really touched me. So this is wonderful. I did find, if we can just put a quote, close the quote for Latino Hispanic Heritage Month and the title.
Absolutely.
And
thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and I would add on the second paragraph, whereas during National Latino Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th, I would add the year 2019, even though it's already on the title. And then I would, so that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so then the 3 looks fantastic, 4 looks fantastic, 5, same thing. We have that the Nevada Unified School District Board of Trustees does hereby fully support September 15th, I would say 2019 to October 15, 2019. And then it's perfect.
I'm so glad.
So I make a motion. Okay.
As amended.
Excuse me. First by Trustee Aguilar, second by Trustee Millerick. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last item is an adoption of resolution number 10. This is to proclaim September as Suicide Prevention Month.
I move adoption.
Are we not having
Resolution
a
10.
presentation? Hold on. We had somebody who was presenting, and I just want to give them an opportunity. If they're not here, we'll move on. Jen, are you going to cover? I can. I think it's in, yeah. Same here. I don't want to just approve it. I think we need a little time for this one. Is there a way for us to? Whatever you want to do. Oh, I have a copy right here. I'm so sorry. I wasn't planning on this. It's on the next page is the resolution.
Thank you very much.
Hello again. I apologize for the miscommunication. So I am here now requesting approval of Resolution 10, the 2019-2020 proclamation or resolution for Suicide Prevention Month. Whereas September is National Suicide Prevention Month, the goal of which to encourage communities to work together to reduce social isolation and raise awareness around the prevalence of the issue and the resources available to all. And whereas the risk of suicide amongst our young knows no social, economic, racial, or sexual identity boundaries, and that the Center for Disease Control reports suicide rates among young people rose 56% between 2007 and 2016. And whereas in response to the California Healthy Kids Survey during the 2017-2018 school year, 17% of 9th graders and 20% of 11th graders in Nevada Unified School District reported that they had considered suicide. The 32% of ninth graders and 37% of 11th graders in our district reported that they had experienced chronic sadness or hopelessness. And whereas the partners in Healthy Novato are working to improve the positive mental and physical health choices of students in Nevada Unified School District. And whereas all adults can make a positive impact on the lives of students by learning the warning signs of students who are struggling and can make an impactful difference in the outcomes for those students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Nevada Unified School District supports efforts to call attention to the issue of suicide amongst young people and encourages teachers, administrators, school staff, parents, youth, and district partners to support efforts to educate everyone on prevention measures that can save lives and allow all students to feel safe, valued, and supported.
All right.
I'll move on that wonderful motion, resolution.
So first by trustee Cooper.
Second.
Okay, second by trustee Aguila.
I do just want to make a quick comment.
Yes.
Can I?
Yeah.
I think this is a wonderful document and great intentions. I know we're doing the right thing to make them, make all those good intentions come to pass for our good students. I know we're
Absolutely.
doing a lot, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Aguila.
Discussion. So I second, but I had with amendment.
Okay.
Okay, so first paragraph, great. Second paragraph, I would add the word religious. So it would be no social, economic, racial, religious, sexual, and then go on,
Yep, thank you.
So, and then the third paragraph, I would, okay, that's fine, just for time purposes. It's good for a year. Whereas the partners, okay, so fourth paragraph, the partners, says that's plural, but then we only have one partner, Healthy Novato. So that's the only one. Is there more partners? I mean, we can
Healthy
mention the
Novato
police.
is a group of partners. So the Healthy Novato partnership has a
Right.
number of organizations
Right.
represented.
So maybe can we say that? So the partners in,
The Healthy Novato partnership?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then the fifth paragraph, I would feel comfortable with, and I don't know what the board thinks, but it says who are struggling. So fifth paragraph, whereas all adults can make a positive impact. And then impact on the lives of students by learning the warning signs of students who are being bullied or struggling and can make an impact, an impactful difference. So just being bullied, I think, also leads to or struggling. So that's one suggestion. And then the last paragraph, it says it says issue of suicide. Okay. Nevada Unified School District supports efforts to call attention to the issues of suicide amongst young people and encourages teachers, administrators, school staff, parents. Can we add community? It says
Community members?
Community members.
Yep.
Such as, we partner with a lot of community. So just wanting to add that word. And then that's it.
Okay.
Are you comfortable?
Are you, yeah.
So I would want to make sure the board is comfortable. Bullying is implied with struggle because there are so many different ways, and I would want to make
Yeah.
sure everyone was comfortable calling that specific struggle out.
Can I add something? So I learned a long time ago, I actually used to work in a law firm, and one of the things they said, the more words you put in, the more you exclude. So when we start putting in words in place of things, it's gonna mean, well, why didn't you say special ed, or whatever, other, because there's a lot of different categories of things. That is my own opinion, just having
I
a
agree.
generalization.
The-
And then with regards to religion, if you choose to put something like that, I would prefer the word faith, not religion.
That's fine.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
But that's just me.
Yeah, that's fine. I added bullying because you can be bullied, and that leads to struggle, but you could also be struggling for other reasons. And so I just wanted to include bullying in there, but we don't have to.
I prefer not to
Yeah.
call it bullying because
Okay. Yeah.
it's part of it. It's one of many.
I agree.
Okay.
We're all good?
Okay.
All right,
So
thank
I had
you.
a first by trustee Cooper, a second by trustee Aguila. All those in favor for the resolution with the amendments? 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next regular board meeting is September 17th. This meeting is adjourned.